Chapter 460. How dare you try to assassinate a brother of mine in the Imperial Palace? You really don't want to live anymore. Ming Dong's face was gloomy as killing intent flickered in his sharp eyes. His fists surged with wind-attributed saint force as he struck the assassin's forehead with lightning speed. Bang! With a muffled sound, blood splattered from the assassin's forehead. His forehead had been ruptured by Ming Dong's punch, causing his entire forehead to cave in. He did not even make a sound before fainting. Several Earth Saint Masters had already arrived in front of the assassin. The light from the burning torches dispersed the surrounding darkness, allowing them to clearly see the assassin's appearance. The assassin's clothes had already been burned to ash, leaving his upper body bare. Even his hair had been burned away, leaving his skin pitch black. Even his face had been disfigured. Coupled with the terrifying wound on his forehead, it was impossible to make out his appearance. Very soon, the surrounding area was surrounded by over 100 black armored soldiers who had heard the news. Even more black armored soldiers were converging from all directions in the distance. What's going on? What's going on? At this moment, a deep voice rang out from behind. The king in his pajamas had arrived under the protection of several experts. His complexion was very ugly. Your Majesty, an assassin has snuck into the palace and attempted to assassinate the fourth young master of the Changyang Prefecture. He has already been captured. A black armored soldier immediately reported to the king in a low voice. Hearing that, the king's face sank. He yelled, "Capture the assassin and throw him into the prison for interrogation. We must find out his identity as soon as possible." "Yes, Your Majesty." Immediately, several black armored soldiers tied up the unconscious assassin and left under the personal protection of two Earth Saint Masters. At this moment, Jianshun walked out of the palace as well. He stood at the entrance with his hands behind his back as he watched the scene unfold before him. He was extremely calm. Ming Dong arrived beside Jianshun and asked, "Jianshun, are you all right?" Jianshun shook his head. "I'm fine. He can't hurt me." The king also arrived beside Jianshun and asked in concern, "Nephew, are you all right? The assassin didn't hurt you, right? Don't worry, I'll do my best to investigate this matter." Now that Jianshun's status was different from before, the kingdom of Jessin had the backing of someone like him. The king was much more confident. Jianshun hesitated before nodding. "Then I'll trouble Your Majesty." The matter of the assassin's attack had caused a huge commotion in the royal palace. Not only had the king come, even the Heaven Saint Master Yi Ming had been alerted and hurried over personally. The appearance of an assassin in the royal palace was no small matter. Moreover, the assassin's identity was so special. However, under Jianshun's instructions, the matter calmed down very quickly. Not long after, the royal palace returned to its usual tranquility. However, the number of black armored soldiers patrolling at night had more than doubled. The number of black armored soldiers stationed outside Jianshun's palace had also increased from the original 50 to 200. Although the king knew that this was only for show, he had to at least make it look good on the surface. Jianshun returned to his palace and sat cross-legged on his bed. The light in his eyes flickered as cold, killing intent flashed through them from time to time. The night passed quickly. On the morning of the second day, a commotion suddenly came from outside. Dozens of black armored soldiers stood in a row in front of the palace. Their faces were cold and expressionless. They radiated a killing intent that could only be possessed by a veteran of the battlefield. The leader of the black armored soldiers politely said, "Your Highness, Prime Minister, this is the palace of the fourth young master of Changyang Prefecture. Without his permission, you cannot enter." On the other side, dozens of people in uniform were facing off against the black armored soldiers. They were the people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Their leaders were the Prime Minister and the Second Prince. "Changyang Shoten has insulted our Heavenly Eagle Kingdom and severely trampled on the dignity of our kingdom. Get out of the way immediately. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite." The Second Prince's face was solemn as he spoke. He seemed to be ready to fight at any moment. Although this was the royal palace of the kingdom of Jessin, the people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom did not take them seriously. "Your Highness, no matter what, you cannot enter." Unless you have the permission of the fourth young master, we will not let you enter. A soldier of the black armored army said in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. "Umph. A mere soldier like you actually wants to block this prince's path. How preposterous." The second prince was furious. He waved his hand and shouted, "Charge in. If there are any obstructions, don't hold back." Yes. The people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom shouted in unison and took out their saint weapons at the same time. Although there were only 40 of them, they were all Earth Saint Masters. After all, the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom was much stronger than the Kingdom of Jessin at its peak. It was effortless for them to mobilize dozens of Earth Saint Masters. On the other hand, there were only 5 Earth Saint Masters in the Black Armored Army. The rest were all Great Saint Masters. The difference in strength was as great as the difference between heaven and earth. Even so, the Black Armored Army did not back down and took out their saint weapons at the same time. "Stop!" Just as the battle was about to begin, a voice suddenly rang out. No one knew when, but Jianshin had appeared in front of the palace. He looked at the people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom with a gloomy face. "Chanyang Shoten, I thought you were going to hide for a long time. You finally came out." The second prince's eyes burned with the flames of hatred. The humiliation he had suffered yesterday was unforgettable. Jianshin walked out of the palace step by step. He glared at the people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom and said in a deep voice, "State your intentions." "Chanyang Shoten, you insulted our Heavenly Eagle Kingdom yesterday and trampled on our dignity. If you know what's good for you, immediately surrender and follow us back to the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom to await Father's judgment. Otherwise, you will have to bear the consequences." The second prince said arrogantly. This time, he had come prepared and brought a large number of experts. He did not fear Jianshin at all. Jianshin revealed a cold smile. His eyes were filled with disdain. He said in a mocking tone, "Second prince, if you take your people and leave now, I can let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, I'll also give you a piece of advice. You will have to bear the consequences." The second prince's eyes shone with an ominous light. "You're courting death. Capture him." As soon as the second prince finished speaking, several Earth Saint Masters immediately charged toward Jianshin. "Stop them!" An expert from the Black Armored Army yelled. 5 Earth Saint Masters from the Black Armored Army moved at the same time to stop the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Jianshin coldly snorted. He gently tapped with his finger, and several strands of sword chi shot out from the tip of his finger. They shot toward the Earth Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom as fast as lightning. The Earth Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom were in the middle of fighting with the 5 experts from the Black Armored Army. They did not have time to react and were all pierced through by the sword chi. The experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom groaned at the same time and retreated in a sorry state. They stared at Jianshin, who was standing behind the Black Armored Army, in shock. "Chanyang Shoten, do you really want to become enemies with the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom? Do you know what will happen to the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom?" Prime Minister Che said with a serious expression. Jianshin was much stronger than he had expected. "What is the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom? 2 special envoys from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom have come. Do you believe that none of you will be able to walk out of the Imperial Palace of the Kingdom of Jessin today?" Chapter 461. The second prince laughed in anger. Good. Looks like the Kingdom of Jessin is determined to become enemies with my Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Brat, no matter who you are, I won't let you leave here alive today." "You?" The young man's face was full of disdain. His face full of disdain. The second prince flew into a rage when he saw the young man's disdain. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't figure out the young man's strength, he would have personally charged up and cut him to pieces long ago. "Sir, who are you? Do you know just how much trouble your words will bring to the Kingdom of Jessin?" Minister Che asked with a sunken face. The young man sneered. "I am Ming Dong, not a member of the Kingdom of Jessin. Don't drag me into this. Chanyang Shoten is my brother. Since you dare to make trouble for my brother, you'll have to get through me first. All right, then let us see just what kind of ability you have to be so arrogant." The second prince glared at Ming Dong. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he yelled, "Get some people to capture him." The three experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom immediately charged at Ming Dong. Their eyes were cold as they stabbed their saint weapons at Ming Dong's vital points. They didn't hold back at all. Ming Dong snorted coldly as a cold light flashed through his eyes. Surging saint force surged from his right hand, condensing into a faint azure sword in the blink of an eye. He stabbed out 3 times with lightning-like speed, colliding with the saint weapons of the 3 experts. With the sound of metal clashing, the 3 experts' faces changed. Although their opponent was very young, his strength was no weaker than theirs. The azure sword contained surging saint force that was much greater than theirs. It was not something they could withstand. The 3 experts staggered back several steps as they stared at Ming Dong in shock. A 6th cycle Earth Saint Master. You've actually reached the 6th cycle Earth Saint Master. An expert from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom cried out in shock. His face was filled with disbelief. They boasted that their talent was not weak, but they had spent several decades to reach their current level of cultivation after expending a large amount of resources. However, the young man before them did not seem to be older than 30, yet he possessed strength that surpassed them. This greatly shocked them. What? He's a 6th cycle Earth Saint Master? The second prince was surprised as well. He stared at Ming Dong's young face and found it very hard to believe. However, his face soon sank, and he said, "Isn't he just a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master? Send a few more people and capture him. He can't be forgiven for daring to threaten me, or what will happen to the prestige of my Heavenly Eagle Kingdom?" Yes. As soon as the second prince finished speaking, another 6 Earth Saint Masters walked out. They were prepared to deal with Ming Dong together. His Majesty the King has arrived. Suddenly, a loud shout rang out. The King of the Kingdom of Jesson had led a large group of black-armored soldiers and experts from the palace over. The king wore a set of white robes, and his hair was slightly messy. He had clearly rushed over in a hurry. Even Changyang Ba and Bai Yin Tian had come. His Majesty swept his gaze around, clearly seeing the situation in the field. With a gloomy face, he walked in front of the group from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom and said in a deep voice, "Your Highness, Second Prince, Prime Minister Che, what is the meaning of this?" The king's face was filled with anger. His attitude towards the ambassadors of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had become much colder. "Your Majesty, Chanyang Shodan, and this person called Ming Dong have spoken rudely and offended my Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. I must bring these 2 back for my father's judgment. Anyone who offends my Heavenly Eagle Kingdom cannot be spared. It's best if you don't interfere in this matter," the second prince said coldly. He did not take the king of the Kingdom of Jesson seriously at all. "Second prince, you should take your people and leave this place quickly. If this matter gets out of hand, the consequences are not something your Heavenly Eagle Kingdom can bear," the king said in a deep voice. The second prince coldly snorted, "Your Majesty, are you trying to stop my Heavenly Eagle Kingdom from doing what I want?" "Second prince, this is the imperial palace of the Kingdom of Jesson, not your Heavenly Eagle Kingdom." The king was truly angry. Now that the Kingdom of Jesson had the Qin Empire behind them, he did not fear the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom at all. Moreover, the imperial protector of the Qin Empire was his future son-in-law. This relationship was as strong as iron. What if we insist on doing this? The person who spoke was Minister Che. "If you insist on causing trouble in the imperial palace, then don't blame me for not giving you any face." A voice came from the sky. Yi Ming, who was dressed in a long white robe, flew over at a low altitude from far away. Eventually, he landed next to the king. Minister Che coldly snorted, "It looks like your Kingdom of Jesson is destined to become enemies with my Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Whatever. Senior George In, I'll have to trouble you to do something." Following Minister Che's words, a middle-aged man in his 50s walked out from the crowd. The middle-aged man's appearance was very ordinary. There was nothing special about him that attracted people's attention. It was very easy for people to overlook his existence. "I never thought that your Heavenly Eagle Kingdom would hide a Heaven Saint Master among your ambassadors. I've really misjudged you." A look of surprise flashed through Yi Ming's eyes as he smiled faintly. Minister Che and the second prince became much more confident. Minister Che coldly smiled. The person who came this time is a prince of my heavenly eagle kingdom. It's a long journey. If we don't invite an expert to accompany and protect him, how can the king be at ease? That's true. Yi Ming nodded in agreement. But even if you have a heaven saint master, it won't change anything. Georgian took a large step forward as a tremendous presence radiated from his body. He said in a deep voice, "It looks like your kingdom of Jessen is determined to become enemies with my heavenly eagle kingdom. We must take away Changyang Shodan and Ming Dong. If you want to stop us, then our two kingdoms will have no choice but to fight." At this moment, Jianshun spoke, "Senior Yi Ming, since they insist on taking me away, then let them capture me. Leave this matter to me. Don't interfere." Although Jianshun's tone was calm, his gaze towards the people from the heavenly eagle kingdom was filled with disdain. Hearing this, Yi Ming and the king exchanged glances. The king then said, "All right then. Since it's your request, how can I refuse? Jianshun, these people are far too arrogant. You have to properly teach them a lesson." "I'll support you," Ming Dong said. He also wanted to personally witness Jianshun's abilities. Jianshun nodded with a smile. He said to the people from the heavenly eagle kingdom, "Since you want to take me back, then hurry up and do it. I don't have that much time to waste on you." "Brat, you're too arrogant." Georgian's face sank. He knew that Jianshun was very powerful, so he decided to personally take action. He charged toward Jianshun as a blur as he grabbed at Jianshun's throat with surging saint force in his hand. Jianshun formed a palm with his right hand, and the fire-attributed energy in the surroundings rapidly gathered toward it. He received Georgian's hand without any fear. When the two collided, a powerful shockwave of energy suddenly erupted and rushed in all directions, destroying the surrounding flowers and plants. The sand and stones on the ground flew up, and the smoke and dust rose up and covered the surrounding space. Georgian quickly retreated after the strike. He stared at Jianshun in shock and blankly said, "Control the energy of the world. You can actually control the energy of the world. You've already reached the level of Heaven Saint Master." Other than a few people who knew about Jianshun's strength, everyone else was filled with disbelief. Even the cold black armored army stared at Jianshun in shock. "What? A Heaven Saint Master? Changyang Shodan is actually a Heaven Saint Master? No, this is impossible. This is definitely impossible." The second prince of the heavenly eagle kingdom paled as shock filled his face. Even Prime Minister Che's expression became extremely ugly. "It's a pity that you found out too late," Jianshun coldly said. A dense layer of azure and violet light shone from his right hand as Jianshun charged toward Georgian with the origin energy of the sword spirits. Georgian no longer dared to be careless against an opponent of the same level. He immediately drew his saint weapon and used it to receive Jianshun with surging saint force. Ding! George had no idea how powerful the origin energy of the azulate sword spirits was. When his saint weapon collided with the origin energy of the azulate sword spirits, the sound of metal clashing rang out. A two-finger-sized gap immediately appeared in George's saint weapon. Spurt! Georgian spat out a mouthful of blood as his face instantly paled. When his gaze landed on his damaged saint weapon, his face was immediately filled with shock. How is this possible? You actually destroyed my saint weapon." Georgian's face was filled with shock. His heart was like a raging sea, unable to remain calm. Jianshun did not give George any time to catch his breath. The origin energy of the sword spirits left behind a beautiful trail of light in the air as it pierced towards George with lightning speed. After suffering once, Georgian became fearful of the sword spirits. He no longer dared to come in contact with them and immediately dodged. However, Jianshun's attacks didn't stop because of this. At this moment, it was as if he was using the origin energy of the sword spirits as the light wind sword. Although he didn't have any Saint Chi to support his attacks and couldn't reach his peak speed, with the help of his powerful body and wind elemental energy, he wasn't much slower than when he was at his peak. Giorgio dodged Jianshun's third attack by a hair's breadth. Before he could even stabilize himself, Jianshen's fourth attack arrived, leaving him nowhere to dodge. He could only brace himself and use his saint weapon to block it. When the two attacks collided, another gap appeared in George's saint weapon. His saint weapon had been damaged twice in a row, causing his injuries to become even more severe. He spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. Damn it, just what kind of power is this? How can it be so strong? George was incomparably shocked. His opponent's attack was so powerful that it was impossible for him to move freely. He was completely suppressed, unable to use even 80% of his strength. Chapter 462. George had been defeated by Jianshen in front of everyone. He flew 20 meters before crashing to the ground in a horrible shape. He rolled a few times before coming to a stop. He spat out a few more mouthfuls of blood as his face paled. The people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom paled in fright when they saw this unbelievable scene. The confident second prince and prime minister paled as well. The second prince began to tremble as his eyes filled with fear. The reason why they dared to cause trouble in the Jesson Kingdom's imperial palace was because of George, a heaven saint master. But now, George had been heavily injured after just a few exchanges with his opponent. The difference in strength between them was like the difference between heaven and earth. He could barely even protect himself. So how could he protect them? The people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom all had extremely ugly expressions. They all sternly protected the second prince and prime minister as they stared at the people from the kingdom of Jesson cautiously. Jianshen had defeated a heaven saint master in such a short amount of time, leaving everyone speechless. Possessing the strength of a heaven saint master at such a young age was just too shocking. Moreover, his battle prowess was extraordinarily great. Battles between heaven saint masters were often extremely intense. It was very difficult to determine the victor in a short amount of time, yet Jianshen had managed to heavily injure a heaven saint master in just 2 seconds. His strength was so great that it made everyone tremble. George coughed violently as he slowly stood up from the ground. He stared at Jianshen's young face in shock. He found it very difficult to believe that a young man who seemed to be in his 20s would possess such battle prowess. In particular, the mysterious power that could destroy saint weapons filled George with deep fear. Grasping such a power would give one an absolute advantage in a battle against heaven saint masters. They could even easily kill them. After all, the collision of weapons was unavoidable in a battle. A saint weapon was connected to its master's life force, just like a part of their body. Once a saint weapon was damaged, the master would be heavily injured as well. George used his sword to support himself on the ground. The 2 finger-sized holes in his sword were extremely obvious. What kind of power is that? How can it destroy my saint weapon so easily? George stared at Jianshen sternly. Although he forced himself to remain calm, his voice still trembled slightly. The power of that power had already filled him with fear. Jianshen had already withdrawn the origin energy from the sword spirits. He crossed his arms as he coldly stared at George. You don't need to know this. Didn't the people of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom want to capture me? All of you can come at me together. I, Changyang Shoten, will face you alone. The experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom looked at each other. They were stuck between a rock and a hard place. Now that they knew Jianshen's strength, they had already lost their arrogance from before. Even the second prince and the prime minister fell silent, not daring to make sound. Even a heaven saint master could be easily defeated. Even if these earth saint masters all charged at him, it would be useless. They would just be sending themselves to their deaths. The difference between a heaven saint master and an earth saint master was just too great. One was in the sky, while the other was on the ground. The two could not be compared at all. George let out a long sigh as he became rather dispirited. He put away his saint weapon and said to Jianshen, I never thought that such a genius would appear in the kingdom of Jesson. Changyang Shoten, you are very strong. We are not your opponent. I apologize on behalf of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom for our rudeness from before. With that, George did not wait for Jianshen's reply and left with the people of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Stop right there. Where do you think you're going? Ming Dong's figure flashed as he blocked the path of the people of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. He sneered, People of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, do you really think us brothers are easy to bully? You were just saying that you wanted to capture us and hand us over to your shitty emperor. You were so arrogant that you didn't put anyone in your eyes. Now that you know you're no match for us, you want to slip away. How can it be so easy? George's face sank as unconcealable anger filled his face. He growled, "Then what do you want? All of you stay here. Don't even think about taking a single step out of the imperial palace of the kingdom of Jessen," Ming Dong said coldly and seriously. Hearing this, the expressions of the group from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom changed. The Prime Minister opened his mouth and said, "Then do you want to imprison all of us here or kill all of us?" A tiny kingdom like the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom dares to be so arrogant. Ming Dong snorted coldly. He looked at Jianshin and said, "Brother, how do you plan on dealing with them? We can't just let go of what happened last night." Although the assassin's appearance had been disfigured and he had kept his mouth shut, the kingdom of Jessen had not been able to find out his true identity. However, everyone knew what had happened. It was just that they did not say it out loud. Jianchun pondered for a moment before waving his hand. "Ming Dong, let them go." "Jianchun, are you going to let them go so easily?" Ming Dong was unwilling to accept this. "Let them go. I have my own plans for this," Jianchun said. Jianchun's attitude was firm. Ming Dong had no other choice. He glared fiercely at the people of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom and said, "You'd better not let me run into you in the future. Otherwise, things won't be as easy as today." With that, Ming Dong stepped aside and stood behind Jianchun. The people of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom heaved a sigh of relief. They did not linger and quickly left the place. After what had happened, they no longer had the face to continue staying in the kingdom of Jessen. They directly led the ambassadors out of the imperial palace and out of the kingdom of Jessen. "Jianchun, why did you let them go?" Ming Dong still felt very unbalanced. The kingdom of Jessen has just gone through a great battle and has suffered greatly. It is not appropriate for us to make an enemy out of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, Jianchun said. "What are you afraid of? Don't forget your current status. Are you afraid of a small kingdom like the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom?" Jianchun gently shook his head and said, "Although the Qin Empire is a great deterrent, it is too far away. Sending an army here is simply unrealistic. On the other hand, the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom and the Kingdom of Jessen are very close to each other. Moreover, the Kingdom of Jessen is very strong. It is best not to make our relationship too tense. Although we are not afraid, the Kingdom of Jessen cannot afford to suffer anymore. So everything you do is for the sake of the Kingdom of Jessen," Ming Dong said with relief. He had always been alone. In the past, he had always done things his own way. He rarely considered the consequences of his actions. Therefore, he did not understand Jianchun's painstaking efforts. The king came to Jianchun's side and said a few words of concern. His attitude was like that of a father caring for his own child. In his heart, he had long since regarded Jianchun as his son-in-law. The commotion caused by the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom calmed down very quickly. However, because Jianchun's strength had been exposed, his name had already resounded throughout the entire palace. He had become a popular person in the palace. At the same time, news of Jianchun and Princess Glan's marriage had also spread throughout the palace, causing everyone to know about it. Although this marriage had been decided a few years ago, the news had not yet been announced. Only the two families involved and the Huayan sect knew about it. It was still a secret in the palace. After the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's special envoy left, the king invited Jianchun's family to a private discussion in the Great Assembly Hall. Not long after, an imperial edict was issued from the Great Assembly Hall, shocking everyone in the Kingdom of Jessen. The fourth young master of the Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten, would henceforth assume the position of imperial protector of the Kingdom of Jessen. The authority in his hands was no less than the king's. At the same time, the king also announced the marriage between Changyang Shoten and the Glan Princess, allowing everyone in the Kingdom of Jessen to know about it. After this incident, the Changyang Prefecture, which had always kept a low profile in Lore City, became one of the most popular families in the Kingdom of Jessen. Everyone knew about it, and it was impossible to keep a low profile even if they wanted to. The fourth young master of the Chanyang prefecture also became a topic of discussion among the people of the kingdom of Jessen. His deeds were gradually exposed under the efforts of those who wanted to dig up information about him. The strength that Jianshan had revealed in the great assembly hall was not sealed. Instead, under the king's secret instructions, the news quickly spread. Very soon, the name of a 21-year-old heaven saint master resounded throughout the kingdom of Jessen, and it quickly spread to the surrounding kingdoms. However, everyone scoffed at this news. No one really believed it. A 21-year-old heaven saint master was just too much of an exaggeration. In a luxurious inn in Lore City, Dugu Feng, dressed in flame-red robes, was drinking alone. Everyone around him was talking about Jianshan. Dugu Feng also scoffed at this news. He did not believe it at all. Suddenly, a conversation at a table attracted Dugu Feng's attention. Isn't the Chanyang prefecture one of the four great families of Lore City? I know a little about the fourth young master of the Chanyang prefecture, Chanyang Shoten. I heard that his talent was outstanding since he was young. In Kargath Academy, he defeated a mid-great saint and a dozen saints as a primary saint. He was very powerful, but he offended the Huayan sect and suddenly disappeared. No one knows where he went. He only returned recently. Chapter 463. Under Jinshan's instructions, his identity as the imperial protector of the Qin Empire was not publicly announced. As such, when he became the Qin Empire's imperial protector, he was opposed by some nobles and ministers. However, the voices of opposition were very small. With the king's resolute attitude and the support of Yi Ming and Kafir, the voices of opposition were quickly suppressed, allowing Jianshan to smoothly become the kingdom of Jessen's imperial protector. At the same time, he was also the only imperial protector of the kingdom of Jessen. The coronation ceremony of the imperial protector was extremely grand. Practically all of the influential figures of the kingdom of Jessen came. Not only did the leaders of the other three great clans of Lore City come, even many people from cities thousands of miles away came to participate. It was an extremely grand occasion. After this event, Chanyang Prefecture's reputation soared, completely suppressing the Huayan sect's reputation and faintly showing signs of replacing the Huayan sect. Regarding this, Chanyang Ba bitterly smiled countless times, his face filled with helplessness. Right now, Chanyang Prefecture could no longer maintain its previous low profile. After the coronation ceremony ended, Jianshan and his family did not stay in the palace for long. They left early the next morning, returning to Lore City under the escort of 500 black-armored soldiers. Jianshan also left the palace with Ming Dong. A beautiful woman in white robes stood out among the group of black-armored soldiers. She was like a beautiful flower blooming in the world. She was so eye-catching and dazzling. The Grand Princess had left the palace at the request of the kingdom of Jessen's king. She was going to stay in Chanyang Prefecture for the time being, saying that she wanted the two of them to cultivate their relationship. Chanyang Ba and Bai Yuntian naturally agreed to this matter. In their hearts, they could not ask for anything more, leaving Jianshan with no other choice. The family proceeded at an unhurried pace, chatting and laughing along the way, filling the air with warmth. Under this unhurried pace, they finally arrived at Lore City at noon the next day. Lore City's city lord, who had long since received the news, led a large group of people to personally welcome them at the city gates. Their faces were filled with respect, and they were incomparably courteous to the people from Chanyang Prefecture. After some twists and turns, Jinshan's group finally returned to Chanyang Prefecture. The 500 black-armored soldiers did not stay for long. After completing their mission, they immediately returned to the palace. Chanyang Prefecture was now decorated with lanterns and colored banners, filling the air with a jubilant atmosphere. As soon as Jianshan stepped through the gate, he could clearly feel that the current Chanyang Prefecture was somewhat different from before. The patrolling guards, servants, and maids shuttling through the residence all had proud expressions on their faces. When they walked, they held their heads high, looking dignified. Master, fourth madam, Xiang Tian, you're finally back. The higher-ups of Chanyang Prefecture had been waiting at the gate for a long time. As soon as they saw Jianshin and the other two enter the residence, they immediately welcomed them with enthusiasm. I didn't expect that there would be such an outstanding descendant in Chanyang Prefecture. This is really the blessing of Chanyang Prefecture. An aged voice came from behind. The old man who was guarding the library walked over with a faint smile on his face. His expression was filled with pride and gratification that could not be concealed. Mixed within, there was also a little excitement. Xiang this is your great-grandfather. Quickly greet him. Chanyang Ba immediately whispered to Jianshan with a solemn expression. Hearing this, Jianshan did not hesitate at all. He immediately saluted and said, "Greetings, great-grandfather." Great-grandfather chuckled a few times. He came in front of Jianshan and sized him up. He nodded his head and praised. "Not arrogant nor rash. Not bad, not bad. You're indeed a dragon among men. At such a young age, you already have the demeanor of an expert." Jianshan and his family exchanged a few pleasantries with the higher-ups of Chanyang Prefecture before they went to rest. On the way back to the room, all the guards who met Jianshan saluted Jianshan with respect. They looked at Jianshan with eyes full of admiration and jealousy. At this moment, outside the gate of Chanyang Prefecture, a young man in a luxurious red robe had arrived. The young man had long red hair and was about 27 or 28 years old. He had a resolute expression and an extraordinary bearing. At first glance, one could tell that he was not an ordinary person. The young man was stopped by the guards outside the gate of Chanyang Prefecture. One of the guards shouted expressionlessly, "Stop! This is Chanyang Prefecture. No one is allowed to enter without an invitation." The young man stopped at the gate and said calmly, "I'm looking for Chanyang Shoten. How dare you? How dare you call the fourth young master by his name?" The two guards' expressions changed. They looked at the young man with unfriendly eyes. Now that Chanyang Prefecture's status in the kingdom of Jessen had risen because of Jianshan, these guards had become somewhat arrogant. The young man was not angry. He said calmly, "My name is Dugu Feng. Go and report to Chanyang Shoten. If he recognizes me, he will naturally come out." Hearing this, the two guards looked at each other. After communicating with their eyes, their attitudes finally eased. One of the guards said, "Then wait a moment. I'll go and report to the fourth young master." Soon, Jianshan, who was chatting with Ming Dong in the room, received the news of Dugu Feng's arrival. His face immediately lit up with joy. He immediately walked out of the room with Ming Dong and quickly walked toward the gate of Chanyang Prefecture. Seeing Jianshan in such a hurry, the guard who came to report changed his expression. He could not help but think of his previous attitude toward Jianshan. He was afraid that Jianshan would blame him in his anger. He immediately became uneasy. This was because he knew that the person with the most authority in Chanyang Prefecture was not the head of the family, but the fourth young master in front of him. His words were more effective than anyone else's. Jianshan arrived at the gate of Chanyang Prefecture and saw Dugu Feng, who had been separated from him for half a year. Dugu Feng was still the same as before. There was no change in him, and his expression was cold. "I didn't misjudge you. You really did come," Jianshan said with a smile. Seeing that the fourth young master of Chanyang Prefecture, Chanyang Shoten, was really the person he was looking for, Dugu Feng could not help but smile faintly. He said, "So your name is Chanyang Shoten. No wonder I couldn't find you after searching for so long in Lore City." Jianshan chuckled and did not explain further. He said, Let's go in and talk." Afterwards, Jianshan brought Dugu Feng into Chanyang Prefecture. Only when the two of them disappeared through the gate did the two guards at the gate let out a huge sigh of relief. They secretly rejoiced. "I never thought that he would be the fourth young master's friend. Fortunately, we didn't offend him earlier. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to stay in Chanyang Prefecture any longer," one of the guards said with lingering fear. The other guard also nodded in agreement. Jianshan brought Dugu Feng into his room and started chatting. From Dugu Feng's words, Jianshan learned that Dugu Feng had already left the Dugu clan. From now on, he would have nothing to do with the Dugu clan. Some of the things he would do in the future would have nothing to do with the Dugu clan. Dugu Feng's actions made Jianshan admire Dugu Feng from the bottom of his heart. In his heart, He already faintly regarded Dugu Feng as one of his own. Although the two of them had not known each other for long, Jianshun trusted Dugu Feng very much in his heart. That's right. Jianshun, didn't you create a mercenary group? Pull Dugu Feng in as well. That way, the strength of our mercenary group will increase a lot, Ming Yuan said. That's exactly what I was thinking, Jianshun said with a smile. However, his brows immediately furrowed slightly. He said, I don't know if Doctor and Yunzheng will rush over. That's simple. Jianshun, didn't you leave the address for Doctor in Yunjing back then? Why don't we just inform the City Lord's Manor and have them investigate the identity of everyone who enters the city? That way, as soon as Doctor and Yunjing arrive in Lore City, we'll receive the news. If they really don't come, then it won't be a waste of our time, Ming Dong suggested. Jianshun's eyes lit up. That's a good idea. Xiao Yu, call Assistant Butler Suda over for me. After that, Jianshun had Assistant Butler Su Da personally make a trip to the City Lord's Manor and pass on his instructions to the City Lord of Lore City. Assistant Butler Su Da hurried to the City Lord's Manor after receiving the order, passing on Jianshun's exact words to the City Lord. When the City Lord of Lore City heard that this matter was personally given to him by the fourth young master of Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten, he immediately became serious. He did not dare to be negligent and personally went to make arrangements. After a few days, Jianshun finally finished dealing with the matters of the kingdom of Jessen and his family. He could finally relax for the time being. At night, Jianshun sat on his bed with his legs crossed. He took out a map from his space ring and looked at it for a while. He murmured softly, It's time to go take a look at the dwelling left behind by the Saint Ruler. I hope it doesn't disappoint me. A ruler's weapon and a Saint Ruler skeleton can both help me refine a strand of chaotic force. I wonder how powerful I'll be once I can use chaotic force. I really look forward to it. The next morning, Jianshun bid farewell to Ming Dong and Dugu Feng. After bidding farewell to his parents, he left Changyang Prefecture. He flew towards the dwelling marked on the map. Chapter 464. Jianshun traversed the territories of several kingdoms and finally arrived at a mountain with beautiful scenery on the third day. This mountain was extremely vast and towered into the clouds. The upper half of the mountainside was completely hidden in the boundless sea of clouds. This mountain was obviously not as ordinary as it looked on the surface. The yuan qi in the mountain was very rich, 2 or 3 times stronger than outside. If one abandoned the demon core, this would be a good place to cultivate and achieve twice the results with half the effort. Jianshun floated about 100 meters above the mountainside and looked around. From time to time, he would look at the map in his hand to find the exact location of the Sage Monarch Cave. After a few breaths, Jianshun sighed in disappointment. Although the map indicated that the Sage Monarch Cave was in this mountain, it was not very detailed. It was impossible to find the exact location of the Sage Monarch Cave from the map. Jianshun looked at the rough terrain marked on the map again. After memorizing it in his mind, he put away the map and controlled the wind element to wrap his body and continue to fly into the depths of the mountain. At the same time, he spread out his divine sense to cover a radius of 15 kilometers. He observed every secret place in all directions and did not miss any clues. Soon, Jianshun arrived at the depths of the mountain. Suddenly, Jianshun's eyes narrowed. He saw a building in front of him. There were about 100 wooden houses scattered in a circle around a 50-meter-tall tower. On the tower, 3 bold and powerful words could be faintly seen. Pure Heart Pavilion. There is actually a sect hidden in the depths of this mountain. Jianshun was very surprised. He immediately flew towards the building. Just as Jianshun approached the Pure Heart Pavilion, an old voice slowly rang out from the sky. A guest has come from afar, so it's no surprise. Disciples of the Pure Heart Pavilion, why don't you come out and receive a guest? As soon as the voice fell, the tightly shut wooden houses opened one after another. People wearing various kinds of clothes walked out of the houses. There were big and small, men and women. Each one of them had a calm expression and a smile on their face. Their bodies emitted an otherworldly aura. At the same time, an old man in a white robe flew out from the top of the tower. The old man had white hair and a youthful complexion. He had the demeanor of a transcendent being, as if he was a master of the Tao. Jian Shun stopped at a distance of 500 meters from a group. He stared at the group of people in front of him with a puzzled expression, not knowing what they were up to. His divine sense had already enveloped the entire Pure Heart Pavilion's encampment. Under the cover of Jinshin's divine sense, they did not conceal their strength in the slightest and were completely exposed to him. There were not a lot of people in the Pure Heart Pavilion, only around 60 people in total. Other than the ruddy old man, there was a Heaven Saint Master hidden in the crowd as well. Of the other 60 or so people, half of them were Earth Saint Masters. The remaining half were below Earth Saint Master. Since you've come from afar, you're a guest. If you don't mind, please come to my Pure Heart Pavilion, the old man said to Jinshin with a smile. Jinshin chuckled. We've never met before, so you don't know whether I'm a good person or a bad person. Do you really trust me that much by letting me in as soon as we meet? The old man chuckled and stroked his long beard. The Pure Heart Pavilion's Pure Heart Pavilion, as its name implies, purifies one's heart of desires. As a result, my Pure Heart Pavilion is penniless. We're not as wealthy as the sex outside, so there's no need for people to covet us. On the other hand, the disciples of my Pure Heart Pavilion cultivate wholeheartedly, so we have no enemies. You're worrying too much. A sliver of surprise flashed through Jinshin's eyes when he heard that. He had stayed on the Tianyuan continent for so long and had seen all sorts of people, but he had never seen a purified person. If that's the case, then I'll have to trouble you. Jinshin did not decline. He clasped his hands and thanked the old man before entering the Pure Heart Pavilion. Under the observation of the senses of Jinshin's soul, the Pure Heart Pavilion had no secrets at all. However, the result surprised Jinshin a little because the Pure Heart Pavilion was just as the old man had said. It could be described as penniless. Including the old man, the several dozen disciples of the Pure Heart Pavilion did not wear anything like a space ring or space belt. There are no monster cores, no delicacies, no priceless jadeite, and not even the most basic grain. Moreover, Jinshin seemed to truly see a lack of desires in the disciples of the Pure Heart Pavilion. All of them naturally possessed an otherworldly presence. Jinshin found it rather unbelievable after learning all of this. He felt like he had arrived in a completely different world. Jinshin followed the old man into the tower. The only thing that greeted Jinshin was a cup of spring water from the mountains. Old man, Tian Shuzi, is the pavilion master of the Pure Heart Pavilion. It's truly unbelievable that you have reached such a level of strength at such a young age. Tian Shuzi sighed emotionally. Can you tell my age? Jinshin was greatly surprised. On the Tianyuan continent, one's appearance was not a measure of age. Unless one knew his background, no one would truly believe that such a young Heaven Saint Master was only as old as he appeared to be. This was because there were many ways to restore one's youth on the Tianyuan continent. Tian Shuzi nodded. He stroked his long beard with his right hand and slowly said, Because my Pure Heart Pavilion cultivates the mysteries of the books, we can clearly see the origin of everything. As a result, old man can tell your age with a single glance. You're definitely not over 25 years old. This time, Jinshin was truly surprised. His gaze toward Tian Shuzi changed slightly. He praised, Looks like the cultivation books of your esteemed sect are truly profound. The old man chuckled and said, Of course. The art of tranquility is indeed very profound. It allows one to see the origin of everything. However, the number of people who can cultivate the art of tranquility can be counted on one hand. The Pavilion of Tranquility has existed in these mountains for thousands of years. This generation can be considered the generation with the most disciples, but there are only around 80. The other 20 disciples are all outside, looking for suitable people to cultivate the art of tranquility. There are just far too few people in the world who are suitable for cultivating the pure heart technique. This is because cultivating the pure heart technique requires one to be free of desires and desires, or the technique will regress instead of improving. At the same time, People who cultivate the pure heart technique progress at a much slower rate than those outside. Firstly, this is because we pay more attention to the cultivation of our minds. Secondly, we cannot absorb the energy within monster cores. We can only absorb the pure energy of the world to slowly accumulate energy. As a result, our rate of improvement cannot be compared to those outside. Looks like the heavens are fair. Since the pure heart technique has such a wondrous ability, it makes sense for it to have such restrictions, Jianshan said emotionally. This was the first time he had heard of such a strange cultivation method. Brother, I don't think you've come all the way here for no reason. May I ask why you've come to these mountains? Tian Shuzi asked. Jianshan sat up straight and stared into Tian Shuzi's eyes with shining eyes. He pretended to ask casually, Old sir, you've stayed in these mountains for quite some time, so I'm sure you know the environment here like the back of your hand. Do you know if there's anything strange about these mountains? Tian Shuzi smiled at Jianshan and said, The strange place you're talking about is the dwelling left behind by a saint ruler. A gleam of light flashed through Jianshan's eyes. He clasped his hands together and smiled. Old sir really does have godlike foresight. You've actually guessed correctly. No, it's not that old man has godlike foresight, but if there's a strange place in these mountains, it would be the dwelling of a saint ruler. Tian Shuzi paused for a moment before continuing. The dwelling left behind by that senior is extremely well hidden. He even used the mysteries of the world to cast down a powerful illusory formation outside, hiding the dwelling's location. It's very difficult for anyone below Saint Ruler to discover it, and the strength of the illusory formation is not something they can break through. 100 years ago, Old Man entered the dwelling to pay a visit to this deceased senior. That senior's body has already been reduced to bones, and he has passed away a very long time ago. Old Sir has entered the dwelling before. Jinshin's expression changed, and he became rather nervous. He was most concerned about the Saint Ruler skeleton. Old Man's calming mantra allows him to see through the source. Although the illusory formation cast down by that senior is powerful, it's completely useless to Old Man. He can enter it after spending some effort, but Old Man has never even touched what's inside. Those who practice the calming mantra cannot be tempted by external objects. No matter how precious a treasure is, he has to treat it like normal sand and stone. Jianshan let out a sigh of relief and said, May I ask if Senior can tell me where the dwelling is? It's beneath a huge valley 50 kilometers to the south. Tian Shuzi did not hide anything and told Jianshan the location of the dwelling. Thank you for telling me, old sir, Jianshan said gratefully. There's no need for that. Even if Old Man did not tell you, you would be able to find it with your own abilities after spending some time. However, there's a powerful illusory formation outside the dwelling. It's basically impossible for anyone below Saint Ruler to enter, said Tian Shuzi. I understand. Old sir, I still have matters to attend to, so I'll be taking my leave first. Jianshan lost his patience after learning the location of the dwelling. He left the Pure Heart Pavilion after bidding farewell to Tian Shuzi. Chapter 465. Following Tian Shuzi's directions, Jianshan flew 25 kilometers to the south. As expected, he found a huge gorge. It was so deep that he could not see the bottom. Jianshan floated in the air and slowly descended to the bottom of the gorge. According to Tian Shuzi, the Sage King's dwelling was located at the bottom of the gorge. It was very well hidden and would be very difficult to find. Very soon, Jianshan arrived at the bottom of the gorge. There was a huge pool of water at the bottom of the gorge. It emitted an intense chill that was bone-chilling. The chill assaulted his body, making him feel like he was being cut by a knife. Jianshan scanned his surroundings. It was very dark and the visibility was very low. However, it did not affect Jianshan much. He could clearly see his surroundings. The bottom of the gorge was very large. He could not see the end of it. The entire bottom of the gorge was covered by the pool of water. There was no place to stand. This is already the bottom of the gorge. I wonder where the Sage King's dwelling is. Jianshan mumbled to himself. He knew nothing about the Sage King's dwelling other than its name. He did not even know what it looked like. Coupled with the fact that it was very well hidden, it would be even more difficult to find it. Jianshan released his spiritual sense at full strength, covering a radius of 15 kilometers. He did not even miss the bottom of the water. He carefully observed his surroundings, not missing a single spot. Jianshan flew along the cliff face, sticking close to the surface of the water as he slowly flew at a low altitude. Wherever he passed by, the senses of his soul would be inspected time and time again. He searched extremely carefully. Even the slightest pulse of energy would not be able to escape his senses as long as it was within the range of Jianshan's soul. Splash! The water below Jianshan suddenly exploded. An anaconda, as thick as a water tank, leapt out of the water. It opened its bloody mouth and bit at Jianshan with lightning speed. It was very sudden. Jianshan frowned slightly. He had already discovered the anaconda hiding in the water, but he was currently focused on finding the Sage King's dwelling. He was not in the mood to care about anything else. He was very unhappy with the anaconda's disturbance. A cold light flashed through Jianshan's eyes. He snorted and grabbed at the air. The fire element in the surroundings immediately surged wildly, gathering towards Jianshan's hand at an unbelievable speed. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into a sword of fire element that radiated with intense heat. It then turned into a streak of red light and shot towards the anaconda below at an even faster speed. The sword of fire element directly shot into the anaconda's wide, open mouth and exploded 7 inches from the anaconda's body. The giant serpent's body was blown to pieces. Waves of fire spread out from the giant serpent's body, dispersing the cold air in the surrounding space, making the originally cold space warm up, making people feel comfortable. With a thought from Jianshan, a sparkling crystal about the size of a fist flew out of the cold pond and landed in Jianshan's hand. This was a Class 5 monster core. Although it was not as precious to Jianshan as before, its value was still considerable. Jianshan continued to shrink at the bottom of the valley. His body was only 20 meters away from the surface of the water. The cold air rising from the surface of the water had already eroded Jianshan's dry clothes, causing them to become wet. Although the bottom of the canyon was very large, Jianshan only spent 2 hours to collect the entire bottom of the canyon. However, he was disappointed that he did not find anything. He did not find the location of the Sage King's cave. Jianshan floated in the air and pondered. Suddenly, his gaze fell on the pond below, and he muttered, "Could it be under the pond?" Thinking of this, Jianshan did not hesitate and immediately dove into the water. Just as Jianshan's body approached the water surface, the calm water surface silently separated into 2 sides, forming a crack in a vacuum zone. Jianshan's body directly fell into the crack and quickly sank down. Wherever his body passed, the surrounding water would separate to the 2 sides, not contaminating Jianshan's body. As a result, an oval-shaped vacuum zone formed around Jianshan's body. The bottom of the pond was not deep, only around 500 meters. Jianshan arrived at the bottom of the pond very quickly. The temperature at the bottom of the pond was much lower than the surface of the water, causing Jianshan to involuntarily shiver. It was impossible for anyone below the level of Earth Saint Master to survive here. Just the cold air was enough to threaten their lives. The bottom of the pond was pitch black, so dark that he could not even see his own fingers. However, Jianshan had the help of the senses of his soul, so the darkness did not affect him at all. Afterwards, Jianshan slowly moved forward at the bottom of the pond, using the senses of his soul to search every inch of the place. Although Jianshan's senses could cover the bottom of the pond, the water here was very strange. Not only was it extremely cold, it could also weaken Jianshan's senses. As a result, Jianshan could not guarantee that he could accurately see the situation at the bottom of the pond from above. There were many different kinds of creatures living in the pond, but the strongest among them were only Class 5 magical beasts. They posed no threat to Jianshan at all. Another 2 hours passed. Jianshan had already searched through the bottom of the pool, but to his disappointment, he still did not find anything. He did not even find a single trace of his body. Jianshan rushed out of the pond and hovered above the surface of the water that emitted a bone-chilling coldness. His brows were tightly knitted together. He originally thought that with the coverage of his soul, nothing would be able to escape his senses. He would definitely be able to easily find the Saint Ruler's dwelling. However, after searching for a while, Jinshin suddenly realized that the Saint Ruler's dwelling was much better hidden than he had imagined. Tian Shuzi clearly said that the Saint Ruler's dwelling was at the bottom of the canyon. Why haven't I found anything after searching everywhere? Jinshin muttered to himself with furrowed brows, thinking bitterly. Could it be that Tian Shuzi lied to me and the Saint Ruler's dwelling is not here? Or could it be that there's more to the canyon and I've come to the wrong place? Jinshin's body suddenly shot up into the sky like an arrow. In an instant, he had flown out of the canyon and circled around to see if there was a second canyon. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Jinshin had returned. He had searched every inch of the surrounding 20 kilometers, but there was only one canyon. There was no second one. Jinshin returned to the bottom of the canyon and hovered above the surface of the pond, thinking bitterly. The Saint Ruler's dwelling was just too hidden. He had not found anything at all. He even began to wonder if the Saint Ruler's dwelling was even here. Master, Ziying knows where the Saint Ruler's dwelling is. Suddenly, a voice sounded in Jinshin's mind. The azure and purple sword spirits responded to Jinshin's distress and took the initiative to speak. Hearing this, Jinshin was overjoyed. He immediately used his consciousness to communicate with the azure and purple sword spirits. Ziying, you can find the Saint Ruler's dwelling? Yes, Master. The Saint Ruler's dwelling is isolated by a layer of formation. Master's soul is still too weak, so it is impossible for you to find the Saint Ruler's dwelling. Ziying said. Chapter 466. Ziying, tell me where the Holy King's abode is. Jinshin could not hide his excitement. He cannot wait. Master, it's 50 meters behind you on the cliff, Ziying said. Jinshin immediately turned around and went to the location Ziying had told him. It was a cliff with some weeds. It looked very ordinary, and there was nothing special about it. Even Jinshin's mind could not sense anything strange. Master, this is a cave covered by a formation. You need to attack this direction and break the formation to see where the cave is, Ziying said. Jinshin looked curiously at the seemingly ordinary cliff in front of him. It was hard for him to imagine that a formation could create such a miraculous effect. With his eyesight, he could not see any flaws. Even his mind could not detect anything strange. Jinshin grabbed at the air, and the fire element in the air quickly gathered. In an instant, it condensed into a fire elemental sword in Jinshin's hand. With a shake of his hand, the fire elemental sword turned into a red light and shot toward the cliff in front of him. Boom! With a loud boom, the fire elemental sword hit the cliff in front of him and exploded. Waves of fire rolled out in all directions, causing the surrounding temperature to rise rapidly. The ice that filled the surroundings was completely dispelled. A large number of broken rocks rolled down and fell into the cold pool below, creating a large splash. When everything calmed down, Jinshin saw a 3-meter-wide cave in front of him. The cave was pitch black, and he could not see what was inside. Is this the entrance to the Holy King's abode? Jinshin stared at the cave and murmured. He immediately used his mind to extend into the cave to see what was inside. However, when his mind was only 50 meters in, it was blocked by an invisible force. It could not go any further. Master, there's a formation protecting it. Ziying's voice sounded in Jinshin's head. The arrangements are really tight. Jinshin sighed. Back then, when he participated in the mercenary conference, he found a Saint King's cave in another space, but its defensive power was far from as strong as this cave. It only used a very thick stone door to block it. The Sage Monarch abode had an irresistible allure for Jinshin. Without hesitation, Jinshin immediately flew into the pitch-black cave and walked inside. Soon, Jinshin arrived in front of the array that isolated his divine sense. He grabbed at the void and condensed a fire elemental sword and shot out. However, what happened next left Jinshin dumbfounded. Just as the fire elemental sword approached the array, it silently disappeared. Master, this is a formation set up using the power of space. Unless the strength of the attack can reach the limit of this formation, it cannot be broken by external forces. A woman's voice sounded in Jinshin's mind. This time, it was Qing Suo's sword spirit who spoke. Then what should I do? Jinshin asked the sword spirits. This was the first time he had seen a formation, and he had never even heard of it before. As a result, Jinshin was still rather unfamiliar with formations. He had no idea how to deal with it. Now that he had encountered it, he could not help but feel like he had no idea where to start. This formation mainly relies on the power of space. With the support of the force of the world, it changes many times and can create countless illusions to confuse people. However, it does not possess any offensive power, so unless you encounter a Saint King, this formation will isolate anyone who enters, Qing Suo explained. Jinshin hesitated before asking, Qing Suo, do you have a way to deal with this formation? Master, although Qing Suo and Xing have expended too much energy and are unable to break through this formation, Qing Suo and Xing can see through it. As long as you follow our instructions, you'll definitely be able to pass through it easily, Qing Suo said in a rather complacent manner. All right then, I'll follow your arrangements. Jinshin could only place all his hopes on the sword spirits now that things had developed to this point. Master, enter the formation first. Qing Suo instructed Jinshin through Jinshin's mind. Jinshin was extremely confident in Xing and Qing Suo. He was not worried that they would harm him at all. Without any hesitation, he entered the formation that could isolate the senses of the soul. With a single step, he seemed to pass through two different worlds. The scenery before Jinshin drastically changed. He discovered that he had actually arrived in a desert. The scorching sun hung high in the sky, radiating with intense heat. The fine sand in the desert was scorching hot, like iron sand that had been burned to a bright red color. Master, this is all an illusion. It's an illusion created by the person who cast down this formation using the force of the world. It's not real. Continue with your normal pace. Don't go too fast, Qing Suo explained in Jinshin's mind. Jinshin obeyed and continued with his normal pace. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Just as Jinshin took his 4th step, the sand beneath his feet suddenly began to flow, forming a whirlpool that swallowed him up. Quicksand. Jinshin was shocked. Just as he subconsciously wanted to control the qi of heaven and earth to fly out, the voices of Xing and Qing Suo sounded in his mind. Master, don't resist. Otherwise, you will be sent outside by the power of space. Xing and Qing Suo said at the same time. Hearing this, Jinshin immediately gave up resisting and allowed the quicksand to wrap around his body and sink down. It was dark underground. Even with Jinshin's eyesight, he could not see anything clearly. Jinshin simply closed his eyes and did not look at the surrounding scenery. He tried to use his soul, but found that his soul was completely suppressed here. He could not send it out at all. Not long after, Jinshin felt his body stop sinking. At the same time, his body was being squeezed by a thick layer of something. It felt as if he was really being wrapped in quicksand. Master, take a step to the left. Jinshin silently closed his eyes, adjusted the angle of his body, and took a step to the left. This step seemed to cross thousands of miles and come to another place. Jinshin's eyes were closed, but he could clearly feel a glaring light shooting at him. Moreover, there was a faint fragrance of flowers in the air. Jinshin opened his eyes and found himself in a beautiful garden. The scenery was indescribably beautiful. It was like a paradise on earth. The air was filled with a faint fragrance. Not far ahead, there was a pool. The water was clear, and he could clearly see the fish swimming in the water. Master, walk forward. Jinshin lifted his feet and walked forward. He did not stop until he reached the edge of the pool. Master, this is all an illusion. What you see is not real. There is no pool in front of you. Continue walking forward. What a magical formation. It is so realistic. Jinshin sighed in amazement. He once again sighed in amazement at the magical formation. Afterwards, he directly took a step forward and stepped into the pool. When Jinshin's feet touched the surface of the water, his body actually did not sink. He just floated on the surface of the water. He felt as if there was a layer of transparent glass under his feet. Jianshun continued to walk on the surface of the lake according to the guidance of the sword spirits. When he arrived at the center of the lake, the scenery before him suddenly spun. In an instant, the garden disappeared, and what appeared before Jianshun was a bottomless abyss. The world was gloomy. There was no sun, no moonlight. It was as if he had come to hell on earth. At this moment, Jianshun stood on a cliff. Before him was a bottomless abyss. He could vaguely hear strange sounds from the abyss. It was as if ghosts were howling. It was hair-raising. Continue walking forward. Qing Sua's voice sounded in Jianshun's head. Afterwards, Jianshun followed the sword spirit's instructions. He continuously moved forward in the formation that constantly changed the environment. He would change his position from time to time. Sometimes he would advance, sometimes he would retreat, sometimes he would turn left or right. After tormenting Jianshun for an entire hour, he finally walked out of the mysterious formation. After walking out of the formation, Jianshun found himself in a dark mountain. The surroundings were empty and desolate. There was only a wooden hut. Qing Sua, this isn't another illusion, right? Jianshun asked the sword spirits in his head. Everything in the illusion was too realistic. Jianshun could not tell the difference between reality and illusion. This directly led to Jianshun not being able to tell the difference between reality and illusion. Master, we've already walked out of the formation. Everything you see now is real. Ziying said. Ziying's answer finally allowed Jianshun to relax. An excited smile appeared on his face. After going through so much trouble, he was finally going to obtain the final treasure. Jianshun was filled with excitement as he walked step by step toward the wooden hut. Just as Jianshun emerged from the illusion formation, 5 streaks of light flew over with great speed. In the end, they all stopped above the canyon, hovering high in the air as they looked down. Among the 5, there were 4 old men and 1 middle-aged man. They wore clothes of different colors. They all had calm faces and naturally gave off a powerful presence. According to the Heaven Saint Master from the Qiangan Kingdom, the Saint King's dwelling is below the valley. It's on a cliff 50 meters above the pool. There's only one valley nearby. It looks like it's here. The middle-aged man looked down at the valley and said in a low voice, "There's basically no deviation in location. It should be here. Let's go down. I hope the Heaven Saint Master from the Qiangan Kingdom didn't lie to us." The one who spoke was an old man. Chapter 467. "That's true, but we don't know who he wants us to kill," said the old man called Elder Foam. "Who cares? Once we enter the dwelling, we'll go to the kingdom of Jessen. I'm sure we'll be able to find that Heaven Saint Master very quickly." As they spoke, the 5 Heaven Saint Masters had already descended to the bottom of the valley. Very soon, they stopped at a height of 50 meters above the pool of cold water. They looked around. "Look over there, there's a cave." One of the old men pointed in a direction and cried out. Hearing that, the 5 of them all looked over. The king discovered a pitch-black cave about 500 meters in front of them. Could it be there? Let's go take a look. The 5 of them flew toward the cave at the same time and arrived in front of it in the blink of an eye. Dense energy of the world surrounded them as they hovered in the air. "Don't you feel that there's a faint trace of fire element in this space?" One of the old men asked with a frown. The others nodded in agreement. An old man with fire elemental energy around his body said, "Yes, there is indeed a fire elemental energy floating in the air. Although it is very faint, I can still clearly feel it. It seems that someone has been here not long ago." And the marks around the cave are also newly created. Someone has indeed arrived here before us. There aren't many people who know about the Saint King's dwelling. According to the expert from the Qiangan Kingdom, there's a powerful formation outside the dwelling. If you don't know the exact location, you won't be able to discover the secret of this place. However, the secret of the Saint King's dwelling just happened to be leaked to the expert from the Kingdom of Jessen a few days ago. It looks like the person who arrived here before us is definitely that person. If that's the case, then that's exactly what I want. Since that person is here, we don't need to waste our energy going to the Kingdom of Jessen. Let's just kill him here and fulfill the condition of the expert from the Qiangan kingdom who told us the secret. That's great. The 5 of them were not in a hurry to enter. They hovered in the air and conversed. Since that person is inside, let's wait for him outside. This way, we won't have to waste our energy to break through that powerful array. If he fails, he'll be directly teleported out by the power of space. If he succeeds, he'll still come out. At that time, we'll just kill him and obtain the treasures left behind by the Saint King. It'll save us a lot of energy. Inside the cave, the so-called Saint Monarch's abode was located in a hollowed-out mountainside. The light was dim and the air was humid. Only the dozens of luminous pearls hanging from the ceiling emitted a faint light, providing some weak illumination to the dark mountainside. There were no flowers, grass, or trees in the belly of the mountain. Other than a formation and a wooden house, there was nothing else. From this point, it could be seen that the owner of this cave did not have high requirements for the environment. He was a type of ascetic cultivator. Jianshan arrived before the wooden house and studied it. The wooden house was completely black, completely constructed from ironwood that was as tough as steel. At the same time, he could clearly sense a powerful pulse of energy within the ironwood. It was this energy that allowed the wooden house to remain in this dark and humid dwelling for eternity. It was still in perfect condition even after thousands of years of erosion. Jianshan stared at the wooden house with mixed feelings. He gradually became stern as well. After all, this was a place where a saint ruler had once lived. Although Jianshan was a heaven saint master now, a saint ruler still gave him an extremely large amount of pressure. A heaven saint master, comprehending the energy of the world, was worlds apart from an earth saint master. On the other hand, saint rulers were supreme existences who had comprehended the mysteries of the world. They could control the mysteries of the world and could even use the force of the world to cast down formations that were difficult to discern. Their strength was countless times greater than a heaven saint master's. The difference between a heaven saint master and a saint ruler was like an earth saint master facing a great saint master. The two were worlds apart and could not be compared at all. Jianshan sucked in a deep breath as he stood in front of the pitch-black house. He slowly calmed his surging emotions before gently placing his hands on the hard, cold door. With a slight push, he slowly pushed it open. With a creak, the door was pushed open and the scene inside was presented to Jianshan. The first thing that entered his eyes was a wooden table made from ironwood. There was only a single chair in front of the table. From this, it could be seen that there were no other guests other than the owner of the house. A vast, surging energy filled the wooden house. It was condensed and did not disperse. If he did not enter the house, he would not be able to sense the existence of the vast energy. Perhaps it was because of the existence of the energy that the wooden house was extremely clean, without a speck of dust. It was as if someone cleaned it every day. Jianshan entered the wooden house and glanced around. The interior was extremely simple, so simple that it did not seem like a place where a normal person lived. There was nothing else other than a table and a chair. The wooden hut was clearly not a single room. Jianshan was currently in a living room, and there was a door in the corner that led to the inside of the hut. Jianshan gently made his way in. As soon as he pushed open the small door, a surging energy radiated from inside, causing Jianshan's body to sink. It was as if he was carrying a huge boulder on his back. Jianshan felt like he was a small boat in the ocean before the vast energy. He was so insignificant that he could not resist it at all. Jianshan looked over and saw a skeleton that shone with a crystalline light sitting on a bed with its legs crossed. The energy within the skeleton was clearly much more powerful than the one Jianshan had seen in Mercenary City. Just a ripple of energy was enough to make Jianshan feel extremely pressured. I never thought it would only be a skeleton. Looks like he wasn't a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler when he was alive. Jianshan murmured to himself. He was extremely excited inside. Although it was only a skeleton, the energy inside was no weaker than a ruler armament. This was definitely a great harvest for him, because he could refine a sliver of chaotic force with the assistance of the sword spirits with this saint ruler skeleton. If this continued, He would be able to use chaotic force with great familiarity one day. Jianshan stared at the pressure from the skeleton and arrived before it. He carefully stowed it away in his space ring. As the skeleton vanished, the pressure and powerful ripples of energy that filled the wooden house completely vanished as well. Jinshan's heart could not help but beat violently after he successfully stowed the skeleton away. He was extremely excited. Whether it was the skeleton of a Saint King or a ruler armament, they were both extremely rare and precious items on the Tianyuan continent. They were rarely seen. Just obtaining one would allow a person to reach the heavens in a single step, or even allow a mediocre clan to rapidly develop into a large clan. As for ruler armaments, they were even preserved as the treasures of peak clans. This was more than enough to demonstrate just how precious the skeleton of a Saint King was. After all, it was a treasure that would only be left behind when a supreme existence like Saint King passed away. Afterward, Jianshan discovered a silver-white space ring beside the skeleton. There were not many things in the space ring, most of them being collectibles. Jianshan rummaged through the space ring and very soon pulled out an ancient scroll. The scroll was 2 meters long and the paper had yellowed. However, it was extremely well preserved, without any damage at all. It was covered in tadpole-sized drawings and a few diagrams of human bodies. Jianshan held his breath as he carefully read the contents. His face was filled with unconcealable excitement. This was actually a heaven-tier battle skill, and a mid-heaven-tier battle skill at that. The Sky Splitter Arts used a special method to use the Saint Force in the body. It compressed the Saint Force in the body and then spewed it out in one go, erupting with a powerful and violent energy to attack the enemy ahead. It had a very wide range and could be controlled by the caster. The Sky Splitter Arts was different from the other Heaven-tier battle skills Jianshan had seen before. The Heaven-tier battle skills that Jianshan had seen before all used Saint weapons as a medium, erupting with powerful energy to attack the enemy. However, the Sky Splitter Arts could be used with both hands. Saint Force would erupt from both hands and attack in a wide range, according to the caster's will. Moreover, the scroll also stated that if a first cycle Heaven Saint Master were to use the Sky Splitter Arts, they could easily destroy a mountain that was several hundred meters tall. From this, it could be seen just how powerful the Sky Splitter Arts was. Jianshan excitedly stored the Sky Splitter Arts into his space ring. However, he was calculating in his mind that he would definitely let Chang Bo comprehend the Sky Splitter Arts as soon as he returned. This was because Chang Bo was the only Heaven Saint Master in Changyang Prefecture. Letting him cultivate the Sky Splitter Arts was clearly the most suitable. Moreover, Chang Bo had not only cared about him since he was young, but he had also silently protected Changyang Prefecture all these years. As for the others, other than a few familiar people by his side, Jianshan did not consider them for the time being. Changyang Ba was currently still a great Saint Master, so he did not have the ability to learn a Heaven-tier battle skill. This was because the minimum requirement to learn a Heaven-tier battle skill was to be an Earth Saint Master. Chapter 468. Aside from the sky-splitting chant, Jianshan also found a Heaven-tier cultivation method in the space ring. Although it was also a Heaven-tier cultivation method, it was much more mediocre compared to battle skills. Changyang Prefecture and Kargath Academy each had one. Although that was the case, Jianshan didn't mind because a powerful clan definitely wouldn't only have one cultivation method. Although almost everyone could only cultivate one cultivation method and battle skill to a clan or a force, the more the better. After all, one cultivation method wasn't suitable for everyone. There weren't many valuable items in the space ring left behind by the Holy King. There wasn't a single magic core or coin. They must have been left to the Qiangan Kingdom. Apart from a Heaven-tier battle skill and a Heaven-tier cultivation method, nothing else caught Jianshan's attention. After putting away the space ring, Jianshan looked around the wooden house a few more times, but he didn't find anything. He didn't find any hidden compartments or secret passages. However, he discovered that after he put away the Holy King's skeleton, the powerful energy contained in the ironwood was rapidly dissipating. Although this small wooden hut was constructed from extremely sturdy ironwood, it was still unable to last forever in this dark and damp mountainside. Without the support of the Saint King skeleton's energy, once the energy within the ironwood completely dissipated, this ironwood hut that had existed for who knew how many years would also disappear from this world. After that, Jianshun wandered around the wooden house again, but he still didn't find anything. He could only leave. Going out was much easier than going in. As soon as Jianshun stepped into the formation, he felt a fluctuation in the surrounding space. Then, he was directly teleported into the pitch-black passage with a diameter of 3 meters. Jianshun took a deep breath and then walked out with a smile on his face. He thought to himself, the king of the Qiangan kingdom didn't lie to me. This really is an intact Holy King's abode. Not only did I obtain a Holy King skeleton that contains powerful energy, but there's also a heaven-tier battle skill and a cultivation method. A light appeared in front of Jianshun. Jianshun quickly exited the cave that led to the abode and arrived above the cold pond at the bottom of the canyon. However, at this moment, Jianshun's expression changed. A sharp light flashed in his eyes, and then a faint cyan light flashed. His body had already moved 5 meters to the side. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. 5 whistles rang out as 5 powerful strands of sword chi shot over from above. They passed through where Jianshun had just been standing and shot into the lake below with a thunderous boom, kicking up a huge splash. Jianshun's expression became very unsightly. He suddenly looked up and saw that 5 figures had appeared above him at an unknown time. The 5 attacks just now were launched by them. The wind elemental energy around Jianshun's body suddenly became stronger. His body shot into the sky like an arrow. Don't let him escape. One of the 5 people in the sky immediately shouted. The 5 of them immediately formed a circle in the sky and sealed off all of Jianshun's escape routes. At the same time, 5 sword chi shot at Jianshun. Jianshun's eyes shone brightly. 5 fire elemental swords quickly condensed in front of his chest. Then, they turned into 5 furious dragons that emitted intense heat and collided with the 5 sword chis. Boom! A violent explosion erupted in the air. The surging energy and waves of fire wreaked havoc in the canyon. The powerful energy waves slammed into the walls on both sides and bounced back. This repeated over and over again, causing the walls to be damaged to the point where countless thick cracks appeared. The entire cliff shook violently. A large number of rocks fell down, falling into the cold pond below. Jianshun charged up from the bottom of the cliff. He did not run away like the 5 Heaven Saint Masters thought he would. Instead, he came to the same height as them and floated there. Who are you? Jianshun asked in a low voice. A strong, killing intent flickered in his eyes. His sharp gaze slowly swept past the 5 people, but when Jianshun saw the 2 old men among them, his gaze suddenly froze. His eyes revealed an extremely shocked expression. Jianshun's mind flashed back to a few years ago outside Wake City. He had accidentally bumped into Huang Wan, who was bathing in the river. The 2 powerful old men that Huang Wan had called Uncle Feng and Uncle Yin. Were they not the 2 people in front of him? Although it had been a few years, Jianshun still recognized the 2 of them with a single glance. It's you. It's actually you. When Jianshun saw the 2 elders of wind and cloud, the 2 elders of wind and cloud also recognized him. Their eyes immediately widened, and their faces were filled with disbelief. The 3 people in the surroundings noticed the expressions of the 2 elders of wind and cloud. Someone immediately asked, Elder Feng, Elder Yun, do you 2 know him? The 2 elders of wind and cloud acted as if they did not hear the question. Their faces were filled with shock as they stared at the floating Jianshun. Their voices trembled as they asked, Why? You've actually reached the realm of Heaven's Saint Master. The 2 elders of wind and cloud's hearts began to churn. The 2 of them were not unfamiliar with Jianshun. They had an extremely deep impression of him. Back in Wake City, Jianshun, who was only a great saint, had taken advantage of their carelessness to peek at their young Lady Huang Wan bathing. This was also the first time their young Lady Huang Wan's body had been exposed to a boy. Afterwards, when the 2 of them attacked Jianshun, They were injured by the azulate sword spirits within Jinshin's body, which greatly shocked them. Afterwards, during the mercenary tournament half a year ago, the two of them had witnessed Jinshin's performance in the ring. At that time, they were extremely shocked. A few years ago, Jinshin was only a great saint. They never thought that in just a short 4 to 5 years, he would soar to the realm of Earth Saint Master at an unbelievable speed. This rate of improvement was truly shocking. Furthermore, they had learned from Huang Wan about Jinshin's performance in the mercenary tournament. It was said that the Huang family's treasure, the Sun Moon Bow, had almost been taken away by the Shi family. In the end, it was all thanks to Jinshin that the Huang family managed to keep the bow. Because of this, Jinshin had even offended the powerful Shi family. And now, only half a year had passed. Jinshin, who had only been a first cycle Earth Saint Master during the mercenary tournament, had suddenly soared to the realm of Heaven's Saint Master at an even more terrifying rate. This rate of improvement left the two Elders of Wind and Cloud dumbfounded. They found it very difficult to accept. Elder Feng, Elder Yin, who is he? Do the two of you know him? Another person asked. The two Elders of Wind and Cloud took a deep breath and slowly calmed themselves down. Elder Feng said, "He is Jinshin, the Jinshin who obtained first place in this year's mercenary tournament." What? He is Jinshin? Hearing this, the other three looked at Jinshin in surprise. Their eyes were filled with shock. Those who could participate in the mercenary tournament could not be older than 50 years old. Since Jinshin was this year's mercenary king, he was definitely younger than 50 years old. It had only been half a year since the mercenary tournament had ended. In other words, this young man in front of them had become a Heaven Saint Master before the age of 50. Across the entire Tian Yuan continent, such a rapid rate of improvement could be considered a peerless genius. Jinshin, why are you here? Elder Yin asked as he looked at Jinshin in surprise. Jinshin stared at everyone emotionlessly and coldly said, "I should be the one asking you this. Why are you here? Why did you attack me earlier?" Hearing this, Elder Yun looked at the entrance of the Saint King's dwelling. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes, and he quickly understood the situation. His face immediately sank as he muttered to himself, "I never thought that the person the Heaven Saint Master from the Qiangan Kingdom was talking about was actually Jinshin." Although Elder Yun's voice was very soft, Jinshin still heard it clearly. A strong, killing intent flashed through his eyes as he asked in a deep voice, "Did Qiangan Yun tell you the location of the Saint King's dwelling?" Yes, it was indeed a Heaven Saint Master from the Qiangan Kingdom who told us about the Saint King's dwelling. In exchange, they told us to take a person's life. The middle-aged man expressionlessly said. His gaze towards Jinshin was cold. Jinshin sneered as his gaze became colder and colder. "I never thought that the Qiangan Kingdom would play this game with me. The person they want you to kill must be me." "Yes," the middle-aged man emotionlessly replied. Jinshin glared at the middle-aged man and said, "Now that I'm here, what are you going to do?" The middle-aged man was furious. He coldly snorted and said, "Since our Huang family has agreed to something, we will definitely do it. No matter who you are, stay here today." "No." The Wind and Cloud brothers' expressions changed as they said, "Jinshin is a great benefactor to our Huang family. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't have been able to keep the Sun Moon Bow. It would have been taken away by the Shi family a long time ago. Moreover, he saved the young Miss life." "Elder Yun, this is only the young Miss side of the story. We don't know what happened in the trial space, so we can't tell if it's true or not. Who can guarantee that the young Miss is telling the truth?" The middle-aged man righteously countered. "Then Shi Xiangran's death should be true." Elder Feng also opened his mouth. He was clearly on Jinshin's side. What can Shi Xiangran's death prove? Maybe it's a personal grudge between Jinshin and Shi Xiangran. The middle-aged man argued. The Wind and Cloud brothers glanced at each other as their expressions became extremely ugly. After knowing that the person they wanted to kill was Jinshin, the two of them had already changed their minds. Even if the Huang family's reputation would be damaged, they definitely wouldn't do anything to Jinshin. Not to mention Jinshin's talent, just his kindness to the Huang family was enough for them to do so. Moreover, There was an inexplicable relationship between him and Huang Wan. Chapter 469. At this moment, one of the old men who had been watching from the side said, "Jianshun, you've entered the dwelling. Did you obtain the items inside?" "Yes, everything is with me." Jianshun answered without any hesitation. There was nothing to hide. Although there were 5 Heaven Saint Masters, he did not fear them at all. "Then there's nothing to say. Everyone, let's kill him together. I fulfill my promise to someone else. Our Huang family's reputation cannot be tarnished because of us. Otherwise, who will bear the blame if the ancestor blames us?" The middle-aged man shouted in a deep voice. The words "old ancestor" from his mouth caused the expressions of the other 4 people to change. They were clearly extremely fearful of the old ancestor. "That won't do. Our Huang clan is indebted to our little friend Jianshun. If you really do that, the ancestor will definitely blame you. Our Huang clan can't do such an ungrateful thing," Feng Lai said solemnly. Elder Yin also said, "That's right. I'm sure everyone knows how important the Sun Moon Bao is to our Huang family. The ancestor attached great importance to what happened in Mercenary City and even personally called the young lady over to ask her about it. He must have learned the details from a young lady. If it weren't for Jinshin's help, our Huang family would not have been able to successfully retrieve the Sun Moon Bao. As a result, Jinshin is our benefactor. If you really do something over the line because of the Qiangan kingdom, our Huang family will become an ungrateful family. The ancestor will definitely not forgive you." Elders Feng and Yun, there's no need to scare me. I've already said before that the young lady's words may not be true, the middle-aged man insisted. He did not back down at all. Elders Huang Junran, Huang, what do you think?" Elder Feng looked at the 2 elders who had spoken up the entire time. The 2 old men pondered for a moment before Elder Huang Junran opened his mouth. "Elder Feng, Elder Yin, what the 3 of you said is not without reason, but the things inside the Sage Monarch Cave are too important to us. We cannot give up. How about this, Jianshin? If you hand over the things inside the Sage Monarch Cave to our Huang family, we will not make things difficult for you. We don't need too much. We just need the skeleton of a saint ruler. The skeleton of a 5th heavenly layer saint ruler is just far too useful to our ancestor," said Jianshin. Elder Huang, he spoke. If they could get the Sage King's skeleton back, the strength of the Huang clan's ancestors would definitely increase by a lot. As for the other things, they were dispensable to the Huang clan. This was because the Huang family had already investigated the identity of the owner of this cave, and there was no treasure that was worthy of their attention. Jianshin sneered when he heard what the 2 of them had said. He said, "You better give up. I will never give you the skeleton of a saint ruler. Jianshin, you're really asking for it. Don't think that you can look down on everyone just because you've obtained the title of Mercenary King. To the Huang family, killing you is as easy as crushing an ant," the middle-aged man yelled out. His gaze was extremely sharp. Jinshin's face sank and a cold light flickered through his eyes. His sharp gaze was like an unsheathed sword as he viciously stared at the middle-aged man. He coldly said, "Then do you believe that if I, Jianshin, want to kill you, it'll be as easy as crushing an ant as well? Bastard, you're looking to die?" The middle-aged man's temper was not very good to begin with, so he was enraged by Jinshin's words. He immediately drew his saint weapon and charged at Jinshin. Jinshin grabbed at the air, and a fire elemental sword instantly formed. With a wave of his hand, the fire elemental sword shot toward the middle-aged man as a fiery red streak of light. The middle-aged man yelled out and swung his saint weapon at the fire elemental sword with surging energy. With a loud explosion, the fire elemental sword was shattered by the middle-aged man, turning into waves of fire that wreaked havoc in the surroundings, dyeing the sky red. The middle-aged man did not slow down at all. He passed through the sea of fire with a barrier of saint force around him, arriving before Jianshin in the blink of an eye. The huge sword his hand stabbed toward Jianshin's chest mercilessly. A dense layer of violet and azure light appeared in Jianshin's right hand, forming a 4-foot-long streak of light. Jianshin stabbed out with the origin energy of the sword spirits, colliding with the middle-aged man's sword in the air. With a soft sound, The tip of the middle-aged man's sword shattered and a thumb-sized fragment fell from the sky. The middle-aged man's expression drastically changed when he saw his saint weapon being damaged. He spat out a mouthful of blood as his body flew back in a horrible shape. He stared at Jianshan in shock as disbelief filled his face. The other four people had clearly witnessed the battle between the two of them. The shattered tip of the middle-aged man's sword made their hearts thump uncontrollably. They stared at the azure and violet light in Jianshan's hand in shock. None of them knew what kind of power it was. The middle-aged man retreated 30 meters before stabilizing himself. He stared at the azure and violet light in Jianshan's hand with a pale face. He involuntarily cried out, "What kind of power is that? It's actually so powerful." Jianshan emotionlessly stared at the middle-aged man and coldly said, "Reality has proven that if I wanted to kill you, it would be as easy as crushing an ant. Now, do you still want to take the Saint Ruler skeleton from my hands?" The middle-aged man had humiliated Jianshan before. Although he was a member of the Huang family, Jianshan would not let him go so easily. The middle-aged man's face alternated between green and white. He stared at Jianshan with a venomous gaze as he furiously said, "The Saint Ruler's skeleton is of great use to my ancestor. We cannot give it up. Elders, let's work together and kill him." Elder Huang Junran and Elder Huang He both hesitated. Before, they had indeed not taken Jianshan seriously. Although Jianshan was a heaven saint master, he was not a threat to the Huang family at all. However, ever since they had witnessed the power of Jianshan's sword spirits, they had no choice but to view Jianshan in a new light. The sword spirit's origin energy could easily destroy a heaven saint master's saint weapon. This was a fatal threat to heaven saint masters. Jianshan held such great power in his hands. If they offended him, he would definitely become an extremely terrifying enemy. Elders, what are you still hesitating for? Don't you know just how important the Saint Ruler skeleton is to our ancestor? The middle-aged man urged. He was alone and no longer dared to fight with Jianshan. He was extremely fearful of the sword spirit's origin energy. Elder Yin, I think we should go back and discuss this matter with our ancestor. Elders Feng and Yin are right. Jianshan has done our Huang family a favor. We definitely cannot do such a despicable thing. Elder Huang Junran said, expressing that he did not want to become enemies with Jianshan. Yes, that's right. I also have the same idea. Elder Huang, he also expressed his opinion. The middle-aged man called Elder Yin looked at the two elders in disbelief. He quickly understood why the two elders had suddenly changed their minds. He immediately gnashed his teeth in hatred. He was extremely unwilling. If the two elders worked together with him, the three of them had the confidence to contend against Jianshan. However, if they did not join, he would not be able to defeat Jianshan alone. He would only be asking for trouble. Jianshan, I, Yin Lai, will remember you, the middle-aged man said while gnashing his teeth. After throwing down these words, he did not greet the other four elders and turned to leave. Elder Huang Junran and Elder Huang also left without saying a word. Only Elder Feng and Elder Yun were left behind. Elders Feng and Yun looked at Jianshan with extremely complicated gazes. Elder Feng said, "Jianshan, ever since returning from the mercenary tournament, the young lady has become very quiet. She is often in a daze. Sai, when you have time, come visit our Huang family. Many people in our Huang family know about what happened in the training space. Our patriarch and ancestor are extremely grateful to you. If I have time in the future, Jianshan will definitely pay a visit to the Huang family." Jianshan cupped his hands and said. Elder Yun sighed and said apologetically, "Jianshan, the matter a few years ago was all our fault. The two of us would like to apologize to you. I hope you won't take it to heart." Jianshan smiled freely and said, "Speaking of which, that matter was all Jianshan's fault. There was some unpleasantness between Miss Huang Wan and I, but it was resolved in the training space during the mercenary tournament. There is no need for the two elders to mention it again." Hearing these words, Elders Feng and Yun revealed a happy smile on their faces and said, "Little friend Jianshan, we still have to hurry back to the family, so we will take our leave first." We must report this matter to the ancestor in advance, so as to avoid Elder Yin Lai from adding fuel to the fire in front of the ancestor. Jinshin also cupped his hands and said with a smile, I hope that the two elders will send my regards to Miss Huang Wan. Ha! We will definitely pass on your words, little friend Jinshin. Elders Feng and Yun chuckled before turning into two streaks of light and disappearing into the horizon. Jinshin sent off the two elders with his eyes. He did not really want to offend the Huang family. Even ignoring his relationship with Huang Wan, just the strength of the Huang family was enough for Jinshin to fear. In particular, the saint ruler of the Huang family gave Jinshin a lot of pressure. Chapter 470. Qinggan Kingdom. Although I've obtained the skeleton of a holy king, you've also caused trouble for me. I don't need to abide by the agreement we made back then. It looks like I should pay a visit to the Qinggan Kingdom when I'm free and seek justice for this matter. Jinshin muttered to himself as he hovered in the air. At the same time, he was worried about the Huang family. Although he had helped Huang Wan in the past and allowed the Huang family to keep the sun and moon bow, the skeleton of a holy king was a treasure that was not much weaker than ruler armament. Would the ancestor of the Huang family disregard their past kindness and make things difficult for him and forcefully take the skeleton from him? From the conversation between the elders, Jinshin could tell that the skeleton was very useful to the ancestor of the Huang family. However, his identity as the imperial protector of the Qin Empire gave Jinshin some confidence in facing these powerful clans. With this identity, the ancestor of the Huang family probably wouldn't dare to do anything too outrageous. It looks like I need to refine the chaotic body as soon as possible. Only then will I have a greater chance of fighting against a holy king. Jinshin murmured. He had already made up his mind. When he returned, he would immediately refine the skeleton of a holy king and strengthen his body. Jinshin's body turned into a faint green light as he flew towards the kingdom of Jessen. Very soon, he disappeared into the horizon. At the same time, in the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, a fleet of carriages majestically entered the royal palace. All the soldiers guarding the palace gates knelt down on one knee. After a few days of travel, the second prince and prime minister of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom finally arrived at the royal palace safely. When the fleet of carriages entered the royal palace, the exhausted second prince and prime minister alighted from the carriage and headed straight for the meeting hall. In the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's great meeting hall, the king, who had already received the news, was seated on the throne and waiting for a long time. On both sides of the great hall, there were 20 experts in armor standing there without moving. They looked like statues. All of them were expressionless, but their eyes shone brightly. As soon as the second prince and prime minister entered the hall, they saw the king sitting high on the throne and immediately knelt down on one knee. Your subject greets your majesty. Greetings, father. The king took the teacup from the maid and took a sip. He smiled and said, You may rise. My son, prime minister, did your trip to the kingdom of Jessen go smoothly? Imperial father, the kingdom of Jessen is too arrogant. Not only are they condescending and looking down on our Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, they even injured Senior George in. We almost couldn't walk out of the kingdom of Jessen's palace. The second prince immediately recounted the events that happened in the kingdom of Jessen with exaggerated details. His expression was extremely furious, as if he had been wronged. After hearing the second prince's story, the king of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's smiling face slowly turned gloomy. He then looked at Prime Minister Che and asked in a low voice, Prime Minister, is what my son said true? Did the kingdom of Jessen really do such a thing? Your Majesty, the second prince's story is mostly true. The kingdom of Jessen does indeed look down on our Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Senior George and was also injured by their people. In the end, they even try to make us stay here forever. Prime Minister Che said respectfully. They've gone too far. The king was furious. He slammed his hand on the armrest of the throne and shouted, Men, bring Senior Qiao here. Yes, your majesty. A guard immediately ran out. Soon, the pale-faced George entered the hall. The king immediately stood up from his throne and went to George inside. He asked with concern, Senior Chiao, are you all right? Facing a heaven Saint Master, the king of the heavenly eagle kingdom had to treat him as an equal. Georgian shook his head and said, I'll be fine after resting for a while. After that, the king learned more about the situation from George. Although there were some discrepancies between the information he got from Prime Minister Che and the second prince, the most important points were the same. This made the king of the heavenly eagle kingdom's expression turn very ugly. Men, bring me 1,000-year-old ginseng that I've collected. The king ordered a palace maid. Yes, your majesty. The palace maid accepted the order and immediately retreated. Senior Chiao, I've obtained 1,000-year-old ginseng not long ago. I'll give it to Senior Chiao to recuperate. As for the matter of the kingdom of Jessen, I'll definitely seek justice for them. A cold light flashed through the king's eyes when he mentioned the kingdom of Jessen. Georgian smiled and said, Thank you for the gift, your majesty. However, you must be careful of the person called Changyang Shoten from the kingdom of Jessen. Not only is his talent shocking, but he also possesses an extremely great power. He can easily destroy a Heaven Saint Master's Saint weapon. I was injured by this power. Then he can't be left alive. Otherwise, he'll be a huge threat to our kingdom in the future, the king said with a heavy voice. After Georgian left, the king returned to his throne and looked down at the kneeling Prime Minister Che and the second prince. He exuded the presence of an emperor and yelled, Prime Minister Che, have you investigated the relationship between the kingdom of Jessen and the Qin Empire? Your Majesty, I've already investigated it. The relationship between the kingdom of Jessen and the Qin Empire isn't as close as we imagined. When I arrived at the palace of the kingdom of Jessen, the imperial advisor of the Qin Empire had already left. I've also conversed with the king of the kingdom of Jessen. From his words, I've deduced that even the king of the kingdom of Jessen doesn't know why the Qin Empire would suddenly support the kingdom of Jessen. Just as I thought. The king sneered and said, It looks like the king of the kingdom of Jessen relies on Changyang Shoten the most. He's a Heaven Saint Master at such a young age, and he even possesses a great power that can easily destroy a Heaven Saint Master's Saint weapon. He's even defeated Senior George N. He really is impressive. It's a pity that he's not a member of our kingdom of Jessen. All right, the two of you must be tired from the journey. Go and rest. I have other plans for this matter. Yes, your majesty. Half a day later, 8 Heaven Saint Masters hurried over from various places. In the end, they all gathered in the imperial palace of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. They stayed there for an hour before leaving at the same time. However, there were 2 more people with them, making it a total of 10 people. 2 days later, the palace of the Kingdom of Jessen remained the same as before. Groups of armored soldiers patrolled the palace. The king of the Kingdom of Jessen spent the past 2 days playing chess with Yi Ming in the garden. He no longer needed to worry about the future of the Kingdom of Jessen because the Kingdom of Jessen had truly gained a powerful backer. Boom! Chapter 471. In the garden, the sudden explosion disturbed the king and Yi Ming, who were playing chess in the pavilion. The 2 of them looked away from the chessboard at the same time and stared in the direction of the palace gates in confusion. What happened? The king asked with a deep voice and a frown. He could sense that something was wrong from the flames in the sky. Yi Ming stared in the direction of the palace gates for a while before his expression changed drastically. He said softly, "Oh no, something's happened." With that, Yi Ming turned into a blur and disappeared from the pavilion. He quickly made his way to the palace gates. Outside the palace gates of the Kingdom of Jessen, the originally majestic walls had been completely destroyed. They had been reduced to rubble that covered the ground. Over 20 bloodied soldiers lay unconscious on the rubble. No one knew if they were dead or alive. The ground was paved with green marble, and there were traces of scorching black marks left on it. The intense heat was transmitted from the floor, making people feel as if they were in a steamer. Above the shattered walls, 10 people in various attires hovered 20 meters above the ground. They looked down emotionlessly with cold eyes. They were all peak Heaven Saint Masters. The loud explosion had attracted the attention of many hidden experts patrolling the Kingdom of Jessen. All of them hurried over, but when they saw the 10 experts hovering in the air, their faces changed drastically. They all paled. God damn it. There are so many Heaven's Saint Masters, and they're the enemy. Hurry up and sound the war drums. An Earth Saint Master ordered with trembling lips. 10 Heaven's Saint Masters were equivalent to all the experts in the kingdom of Jessen. Dong, 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 dong. The heavy sound of the war drums rang out very quickly. The sound of the war drums was extremely penetrating, spreading throughout the entire palace. This was the highest warning in the kingdom of Jessen. It had not been sounded for several decades. Once the war drums were sounded, it meant that the palace of the kingdom of Jessen was facing a great threat. Everyone had to put down everything they were doing and fight the enemy. All the guards and experts scattered around the imperial palace were alarmed by the sound of the war drums. After being stunned for a moment, they quickly reacted and rushed towards the imperial palace gate. Shadows could be seen everywhere. A tremendous presence radiated from the imperial palace. Yi Ming, who was wrapped in a layer of water elemental energy, flew over from the garden and arrived at the entrance of the imperial palace in a single moment. He sternly stared at the 10 Heaven Saint Masters who hovered in the air. His face was extremely ugly, and he did not care about the damaged entrance at all. "Who are you guys?" Yi Ming asked in a deep voice. Among the 10 people, an old man wearing a luxurious robe sneered disdainfully. "We are from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Immediately summon the king of your kingdom of Jessen, Princess Glan, and Changyang Shoten. It's best if we don't look for them personally. Otherwise, the consequences are not something your kingdom of Jessen can bear. Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, you actually dare to behave atrociously in my kingdom of Jessen. Do you really think that our kingdom of Jessen is still as weak and easy to bully as before?" Yi Ming said in a deep voice. His face was extremely stern. He was the only Heaven Saint Master in the Imperial Palace right now. The others were scattered everywhere and would not be able to rush over in a short amount of time. Currently, the Imperial Palace did not have the power to stop the 10 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. "You're right. We really don't see anything about your kingdom of Jessen that makes us fear you," said a middle-aged man in red robes. His face was filled with disdain. Yi Ming snorted coldly. He did not fear facing the 10 Heaven Saint Masters alone. He yelled, "Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, if you don't want to cause trouble, then leave quickly. Otherwise, the Qin Empire will not let you go. Do you know the relationship between the kingdom of Jessen and the Qin Empire? You're just bluffing. Don't tell us that the kingdom of Jessen and the Qin Empire have a close relationship. We're not as easy to fool as 3-year-olds, sneered an old man. They had all heard from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's king that the kingdom of Jessen and the Qin Empire did not have a close relationship. As a result, they completely ignored the threat of the kingdom of Jessen bringing the Qin Empire over. Quickly summon the king and Princess Glan. Otherwise, we'll raise the kingdom of Jessen's imperial palace to the ground." A dark-skinned old man sternly said. His gaze was extremely sharp, as if 2 bolts of lightning were shooting out from his eyes. At this moment, several thousand elite soldiers and black-armored soldiers had gathered at the entrance of the imperial palace. However, when they saw the 10 experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom hovering in the air, they were all dumbfounded. A peak expert like the Heaven Saint Master was not someone they could deal with. Even though there were thousands of them, they were powerless before a peak expert like the Heaven Saint Master. The king walked out of the garden under the protection of a few experts of the black-armored army. When he saw the 10 Heaven Saint Masters hovering in the air, his face became extremely stern. However, he did not stop because of this. With his head held high, he walked over with large strides. One of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's experts discovered the king and said to the others in a low voice, "Look, that person should be the king of the kingdom of Jessen." The 10 Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's experts all looked at the king. One of them nodded and said, "It should be him. Let the old man capture him." With that, the old man flew toward the king. "Don't even think about it," Yi Ming angrily roared. He moved in front of the old man and attacked without any hesitation. The saint weapon in his hand slashed toward the old man with powerful ripples of energy. A cold light flashed through the old man's eyes. He immediately drew his own saint weapon and began fighting with Yi Ming. Let's end this quickly. Bai Lai, the two of us will go help Elder and Mo, one of the old men said in a low voice. He then drew his own weapon and charged toward Yi Ming. The old man standing next to him nodded and joined the battle. The three of them attacked Yi Ming at the same time. The three experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom were not any weaker than Yi Ming. In fact, one of them was even stronger than Yi Ming. Yi Ming was fighting 1 against 3, and the pressure on him was immense. He was completely suppressed by the three of them and could only block and dodge. He had no strength to retaliate. After all, he did not have the supreme battle prowess of the imperial advisor of the Qin Empire, or Chong Wuji. The battle between the four of them was extremely intense. Every time they collided, a powerful energy storm would erupt and wreak havoc. It was as if thunder was rumbling from the 9 heavens. The powerful shockwaves of energy caused the Jessan Kingdom's imperial palace to be in a mess. A large number of soldiers were affected and suffered heavy casualties. The imperial palace immediately became chaotic. The thousands of elite soldiers gathered at the entrance of the palace all fled in all directions, avoiding the disaster that was descending from the sky. Your Majesty, let's go. The few experts of the Black Armored Army who were protecting the king also saw that the situation was bad. They forcefully carried the king and fled into the depths of the palace. They knew that there was no power in the palace that could stop the 10 Heaven Saint Masters. The only way was to escape. One of the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom noticed the experts of the Black Armored Army who were carrying the king into the depths of the palace. He sneered, If you want to leave? Do you think we're just decorations? As soon as he finished speaking, the expert shot through the air with a dense earth elemental energy in pursuit of the king. The expression of one of the experts of the Black Armored Army changed. He cried out, Oh no, they're coming. Protect the king and leave. I'll stop them. Be careful, Commander. Take care, Commander. The experts of the Black Armored Army all cried out. Their faces were distressed, but they did not slow down at all. They carried the king and fled into the depths of the palace in an attempt to use a secret passage to escape. A shiny, silver curved blade appeared in the commander's hand. He coldly stared at the Heaven Saint Master who was rapidly approaching him. Suddenly, he roared out, the first form of the Bai family's blade technique, Heaven Splitter. The silver curved blade became a jade green color in a single moment, making it seem extremely demonic. Afterward, a green light erupted from the blade, illuminating the sky with resplendent light. It dyed the surroundings green as it shot through the air, heading toward the Heaven Saint Master with lightning-like speed. At the same time, a pressure that belonged to the world suddenly appeared. It permeated the surrounding space, and the Heaven Saint Master who had been targeted by the light felt it the most. He only felt that the surrounding space seemed to be squeezing him, as if he had fallen into a quagmire. His movements were greatly hindered. This is a heaven-tier battle skill. The expression of the Heaven Saint Master who had chased after the king changed drastically. His face was filled with disbelief as he stared at the black-armored Earth Saint Master in front of him. He had never imagined that a mere Earth Saint Master of the Jessan Kingdom would actually possess such a precious heaven-tier battle skill. What? The commander actually knows a heaven-tier battle skill. The few experts of the Black Armored Army who were carrying the king into the depths of the palace also stopped in their tracks. Their eyes widened as they stared at the Black Armored Army commander behind them in disbelief. In the air above the imperial palace, the 6 idle Heaven Saint Masters were drawn over by the pressure of the heaven-tier battle skill. They all cried out and began to rush toward the Black Armored Army expert who had used the heaven-tier battle skill. Their eyes shone with greed as they all wanted to obtain the cultivation method of the heaven-tier battle skill from the Black Armored Army expert as soon as possible. The 3 experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom who were fighting against Yi Ming could not resist the temptation of the heaven-tier battle skill. The 3 of them roared out in unison and used their full strength to heavily injure Yi Ming. He fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Without any hesitation, they quickly charged toward the commander. The expert who had been targeted by the heaven-tier battle skill calmed down very quickly. A cruel smile appeared on his face as he chuckled. I never thought that a puny Earth Saint Master would actually know a Heaven-tier battle skill. This has truly exceeded my expectations. However, with your strength, you won't be able to use the Heaven-tier battle skill at all. Even if you do, you won't be able to threaten me. I'll show you the power of my Earth-tier battle skill. With that, the huge sword in the Heaven Saint Master's hand shone with a bright yellow light as he used his Earth-tier battle skill to contend against the Heaven-tier battle skill. The two collided, erupting with a powerful storm of energy that sent the palaces on both sides flying. The ground also cracked inch by inch, forming thick cracks. Chapter 472. A few Heaven Saint Masters immediately charged in by Dao's direction. They burrowed into the palace and pulled out the heavily injured Bai Dao. The 10 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom all stared at Bai Dao with shining eyes. They did not hide the greed in their eyes at all. Even their breathing had become heavy. Quick, take off his space ring and see if there's a Heaven-tier battle skill inside. They had completely forgotten their mission before the temptation of a Heaven-tier battle skill. Someone immediately took off Bai Dao's space ring impatiently and checked its contents. A while later, he shook his head in disappointment. There's nothing. The Heaven-tier battle skill isn't in the space ring. Let me see. One of them refused to give up. He snatched the space ring and began to check it, but he revealed the same expression very soon. He was filled with disappointment. There really isn't anything. Afterward, everyone checked the space ring. Sure enough, they did not find any Heaven-tier battle skills. There was not even an Earth-tier battle skill. Take it back first, then slowly interrogate him. An old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion said indifferently, "We have to obtain this Heaven-tier battle skill no matter what. Even if he has to write it down, we have to make him write it down for us." A middle-aged man in tight robes coldly said, "If we obtain a Heaven-tier battle skill, our strength will definitely increase by another level," said a skinny old man. His eyes shone as he was filled with excitement. The other people also smiled excitedly when they heard that. They had been drooling over a Heaven-tier battle skill for a very long time. If they did not have any background or fortuitous encounters, even Heaven Saint Masters would struggle to obtain a Heaven-tier battle skill. However, none of them possessed a Heaven-tier battle skill among the 10 of them. The most powerful one was a high-level Earth-tier battle skill. Oh no, the commander has been captured. Nearby, an expert of the Black Armored Army who protected the king said with an ugly expression, "Don't worry about that. Protect the king first," an expert of the Black Armored Army ordered. An expert of the Black Armored Army beside him shouted in a low voice. He carried the king and quickly fled into the depths of the palace. Bai Dao is Chongyang Shoten's uncle. You can't let anything happen to him, or how am I supposed to answer to them? The king struggled violently, as if he wanted to break free from the hands of the experts of the Black Armored Army. However, with his ability, all of this was destined to be a waste of energy. A few experts from the Black Armored Army held the king's body tightly as they ran. An expert whose face was covered by a black helmet said in a hurried tone, "Your Majesty, there are 10 experts on the other side. We can't defend against them at all. If we go, we will just be throwing our lives away in vain. Let's preserve our lives first and think of a way to rescue the commander in the future." The Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's actions this time had truly caught the kingdom of Jessen off guard. Suddenly, the rapidly running figures of the Black Armored Army experts came to an abrupt halt. Each and every one of them stared in front of them with incomparably solemn expressions. Right in front of them, a middle-aged man was floating 5 meters above the ground, looking at them with a sneer on his face. He was one of the 10 Heaven Saint Masters of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. With so many of us taking action this time, if we still let you escape right under our noses, then we won't have the face to see anyone when we return. The middle-aged man's tone was very calm. His gaze towards the experts of the Black Armored Army was filled with disdain. The experts of the Black Armored Army slowly put the king down. At the same time, they took out their saint weapons and yelled, "We swear to protect the king with our lives." Their eyes were filled with a fearless spirit. They disregarded life and death as they charged towards the Heaven Saint Master at the same time. The middle-aged man's face turned cold. He sneered, "A bunch of ants. How dare you act so impudently?" The middle-aged man suddenly pushed his hand forward. Vast amounts of energy of the world erupted from his hand, forming a powerful current that rushed towards the experts of the Black Armored Army. Bang, bang, bang. Following a few muffled sounds of collisions, the bodies of the Black Armored Army experts seemed to have been hit by a mountain rock. One after another, they spat out a mouthful of blood as their bodies flew backwards. Even the pitch-black armor on their bodies had small cracks on it. After losing the protection of the experts of the Black Armored Army, the king was now all alone. However, there was not the slightest trace of fear on his face. Instead, he glared fiercely at the expert from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom and furiously said, "Your Heavenly Eagle Kingdom will pay a heavy price for what you have done today. Do you know the identity of the Black Armored Army commander we just captured? He is the uncle of the Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire." "What? The uncle of the Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire? Ha 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 ha." The middle-aged man laughed loudly at the king's words. He looked at the king as if he was looking at an idiot and said, "Your Majesty the King of the Kingdom of Jesson, no matter what, you are still the ruler of a kingdom. I didn't expect you to say such a childish thing. What kind of status does the Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire have? Why would his uncle be a small guard in your little kingdom of Jesson to protect you? Humph, you will regret this sooner or later." The king of the kingdom of Jesson coldly said. He also knew that this matter was somewhat shocking, so he was too lazy to waste his energy explaining. After all, no one would believe him. The middle-aged man slowly walked to the king's side and said with a fake smile, "Your Majesty, we are only inviting you to our Heavenly Eagle Kingdom as a guest. At the same time, we have also invited Princess Glan and Changyang Shoten. It's best if you call them out. It's best if you don't make us do it ourselves. I'm sure you know the consequences of us doing it ourselves." Hearing this, the king's eyes flashed with an undetectable light. He coldly smiled and said, "Princess Glan and Changyang Shoten are not in the palace. They are currently in Chanyang Prefecture in Lore City. If you really have the guts, then go to Chanyang Prefecture and capture them." Humph. Right now, only Chanyang Prefecture in the Kingdom of Jesson could contend against 10 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. This was because the king knew that there were 7 Heaven Saint Masters in Chanyang Prefecture. Ignoring the fact that Changyang Shoten and Chang Wuji possessed unparalleled strength and battle prowess, just the 5 Imperial Advisors of the Qin Empire could easily take on 2 Heaven Saint Masters by themselves. Right now, he and Bai Dao had nowhere else to go. Their only chance of escape was in Chanyang Prefecture. Chanyang Prefecture, the middle-aged man softly murmured. A cold light gradually flashed through his eyes as he evilly smiled. "We just happen to be on our way to Chanyang Prefecture as well. It's on the way. Your Majesty, let's go." The middle-aged man grabbed the king by the collar and shot off into the air. Very soon, he met up with the other 9 Heaven Saint Masters. "Everyone, I've captured the king of the Kingdom of Jesson." The middle-aged man placed the king on the ground and faintly smiled at the 9 people. "Where's Princess Glan and Changyang Shoten? We need to bring them back as well," an old man said. The middle-aged man chuckled. "Princess Glan and Changyang Shoten aren't in the Imperial Palace. They're in Chanyang Prefecture right now. It just so happens that Chanyang Prefecture is one of the places we need to go. There's no time to lose. Let's hurry to Chanyang Prefecture. However, we need to be careful of that Changyang Shoten. I heard from George that he possesses an unknown power that can easily destroy our saint weapons," a red-robed old man said. Towards the end, a sliver of seriousness appeared on his face. "Don't worry. I don't believe that he can stop so many of us at the same time. As long as we call a few more people, he'll still be overwhelmed." Afterward, the 10 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom took off with the king of the Kingdom of Jesson and Bai Dao. The thousands of elite soldiers in the Imperial Palace and the heavily injured Yi Ming could only watch as they swaggered off. Chapter 473. Within the Chanyang Prefecture of Lore City, Changyang Ba and Chang Wuji were currently chatting with the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire in a luxurious room. In the days that Jian Shen had been gone, Changyang Ba would take some time to chat with the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire, trying to get closer to them. Senior imperial advisors, have you gotten used to living here? If there's anything you don't like, please tell us. We'll definitely fix it. Changyang Ba chuckled. Although his son was the imperial protector of the Qin Empire, and these 5 imperial advisors could only be considered subordinates, Changyang Ba was still extremely courteous to them. After all, they were peak Heaven Saint Masters. Patriarch is far too courteous. The 5 of us have been very comfortable here. We're very satisfied, Xiao Tian said with a smile. Xiao Tian smiled faintly. Since he was the strongest out of the 5 and possessed great talent, he seemed to have become the leader of the group when Jian Shen was not present. They casually chatted in the room. Although they did not take Changyang Ba seriously because he was only a great Saint Master, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire were still extremely courteous to Changyang Ba. They did not dare to put on any airs and treated him as an equal because he had an extremely outstanding son. While they were chatting happily, Chang Wuji, who was sitting at the side, was slightly taken aback, and his expression immediately became serious. He cupped his hands and said, 5 imperial advisors, Patriarch, this old servant has something to do, so this old servant will take his leave first. Changbo, you can go do whatever you need to do. Changyang Ba chuckled. He looked at Changbo as if he was looking at his own elder. Chang Wuji, if there's anything you need us to do, feel free to tell us. Xiao Tian said with a smile as he glanced at the sky outside. Chang Wuji gratefully thanked him before leaving the room. Standing in front of the door, Chang Wuji looked at the sky with a serious expression. Light flickered in his eyes, and there was also some confusion. Then he slowly rose into the air and hovered high above Changyang Prefecture, looking into the distance. Heaven Saint Masters flew very quickly. Lore City was only a few thousand kilometers away from the royal capital. 10 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom escorted the king of the Kingdom of Jessen and the commander of the Black Armored Army to Lore City after a few hours of flight. They were currently flying in the direction of Changyang Prefecture. A skinny old man looked at the map in his hand and said, Changyang Prefecture is up ahead. This incident was mainly caused by Changyang Prefecture. Just exterminate a small family clan and show them the consequences of offending our Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. The ruddy old man said. He was a member of the imperial family of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, so he understood the entire situation much better than anyone else. Exterminating Changyang Prefecture was also the king's idea. Hearing these words, the king, who was being held captive by the middle-aged man, revealed a disdainful sneer. He thought to himself, Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, you've poked a hornet's nest this time. No one can save you now. The 10 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom arrived above Changyang Prefecture very quickly, but Chang Wuji had been waiting for quite some time with his hands behind his back. The group of people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had arrived with great fanfare. They did not hide their presences at all, so Chang Wuji and Xiao Tian had sensed them the moment they entered Lore City. Chang Wuji sternly glanced at the 10 experts before him. His eyes quickly locked onto the king and the unconscious Bai Dao. He immediately paled in fright and could not help but cry out, Your Majesty, you should be the greatest expert of Changyang Prefecture, Chang Wuji, right? The ruddy old man stared at Chang Wuji coldly as he asked nonchalantly. Chang Wuji immediately understood the situation after the king and Bai Dao of the Kingdom of Jessen had been captured. The 10 experts were enemies. Who are you? Chang Wuji asked with a heavy voice and a sunken face. We're from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Chang Wuji, tell Changyang Shoten to get out here. Nothing good ever happens to those who offend our Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, the ruddy old man said emotionlessly. His voice became colder and colder. A cold light flashed through Chang Wuji's eyes as a tremendous presence radiated from his body. He glared at the 10 people and yelled out, People of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, how dare you disrespect the 4th young master? Are you tired of living? How dare you speak to the people of the heavenly eagle kingdom like that? You're looking to die." The white-haired old man was enraged. He immediately took out his saint weapon and charged at Chong Wuji. Chong Wuji snorted coldly. He was not afraid at all. However, his battle-intense sword as his saint weapon immediately appeared in his hand. At the same time, saint force surged out of Chong Wuji's body, almost surpassing his own strength. The surging ripples of energy caused the surrounding space to ripple. In order to deter his opponent, Chong Wuji used the Heaven Stealing's fortune right from the start. His battle prowess tripled as a 5th cycle Heaven Saint Master, reaching the peak of the 6th cycle Earth Saint Master. Even though the attack did not possess enough power to destroy the world, it was still powerful enough to shatter mountains. Boom! The collision of the two saint weapons was like a clap of thunder in the sky. The expert from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom immediately grunted as blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He was sent flying by Chong Wuji's attack. In just a single move, he had defeated a 2nd cycle Heaven Saint Master. Chong Wuji's shocking battle prowess caused the remaining 9 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom to change in expression. Before they had investigated the matters of the Chanyang Prefecture. Although they knew that Chong Wuji was very powerful, they did not think that he was this powerful. Back when the Kingdom of Jessen was fighting against the allied army of the 4 kingdoms, Chong Wuji was able to kill Heaven Saint Masters one after another because of the might of a Heaven tier battle skill. But now, Chong Wuji was able to injure a 2nd cycle Heaven Saint Master with a casual attack. His battle prowess had far exceeded their expectations. Below, the entire Chanyang Prefecture was alarmed. A large number of guards charged out of their houses with murderous intent, but when they saw the 11 Heaven Saint Masters in the sky, they were immediately stunned. They gulped with difficulty and shrunk their necks, no longer saying anything. "Release the king and Bai Dao immediately, or you'll have to bear the consequences." Chong Wuji did not continue to attack. Instead, he stared at the people with a cold gaze and growled. Now that the king and Bai Dao were in their hands, Chong Wuji was unable to do anything. He was also worried about harming the two of them. "Don't even think about it. Chong Wuji, I admit that you're very powerful. None of us are your opponent in a one-on-one fight, but you're just one person. Even with Chanyang Shoten, you're only 2 Heaven Saint Masters. There are 10 of us. Do you really think you could defeat us?" An old man asked. Chong Wuji sneered. "You underestimate my Chanyang Prefecture far too much. Release them immediately, and there's still room for negotiation. Otherwise, your Heavenly Eagle Kingdom will become the sworn enemy of our Kingdom of Jessen. You'll definitely be destroyed." Haha, what a joke. Just what ability does your Kingdom of Jessen have to destroy my Heavenly Eagle Kingdom? The ruddy old man laughed aloud. He looked at the Kingdom of Jessen with disdain. At this moment, the expert who had been injured by Chong Wuji flew back. His face was rather pale, and his gaze toward Chong Wuji was filled with deep fear. A red-haired old man in fiery red robes said, "They're all going to die anyway, so let's not waste time on them. Send a few people to deal with Chong Wuji. Send 2 more people to find Chanyang Shoten. That cowardly person is actually afraid to come out at a time like this." The red-haired old man was a 4th cycle Heaven Saint Master, and he was also the most powerful person in the group. He possessed great prestige in the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, so he had vaguely become the leader of the group. Fair enough. Patriarch Zhou, Sect Master Huang, Elder Mubai, and Elder Pingyun let the 5 of us deal with Chong Wuji together, the skinny old man chuckled. The 5 of them were all 3rd cycle Heaven Saint Masters. If they worked together, even a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master would have a hard time. The 5 old men strode through the air and walked out of the group. One of them sneered, "I heard that Chong Wuji has a Heaven tier battle skill. Looks like we've gained quite a bit from this trip to the Kingdom of Jessen." As soon as he finished speaking, the 5 of them charged toward Chong Wuji as if they had already discussed this beforehand. The 6 of them began to fight. "Father!" Suddenly, a cry rang out from below. The Glam Princess Yu and Bai Yun Tian stood below. They stared at the king in the hands of the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom in fright. Their beautiful faces had already paled in fright, afraid that their father would be in danger. Seeing that his daughter was actually below, the king's expression changed slightly. He immediately shouted, quickly hide, quickly hide." The shockwaves from a battle between Heaven's Saint Masters could injure a large number of people. The king was also very worried that his daughter would be injured by the shockwaves. The conversation between the father and daughter allowed the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom to know the identity of the Glam Princess. Immediately, two of them quickly descended in an attempt to capture the Glam Princess. The Glam Princess was also one of their targets. However, before the five of them could land on the ground of Chanyang Prefecture, a sudden change occurred. Five figures shot up from below at an extremely fast speed. A vast and boundless aura had already locked onto the two of them. The enormous pressure was so great that the two of them could barely breathe. What? The two Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom were shocked. They never thought that there would be 5 Heaven Saint Masters hidden in Chanyang Prefecture. Moreover, these 5 Heaven Saint Masters were not weaker than them. There were even 3 of them who were much stronger than them. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had finally made their move. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire did not give the 2 experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom any time to react. Since they were enemies, they would not hold back. As soon as the 2 sides approached each other, the 5 imperial advisors attacked with all their strength. In a single exchange, the 2 experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom were heavily injured. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and flew high into the sky. What? There are actually 5 hidden experts in Chanyang Prefecture. How is this possible? How can there be so many Heaven Saint Masters in Chanyang Prefecture? Could it be that all the experts of the Kingdom of Jessin have gathered in Chanyang Prefecture? The experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom were all shocked. The situation had completely exceeded their expectations. None of them thought that Chanyang Prefecture would have so many hidden experts. In particular, the vast and boundless aura from the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire caused their faces to become extremely ugly. The weakest of these people was a 3rd cycle Heaven Saint Master. There was even one who did not seem to be weaker than Chang Wuji. Chapter 474. As soon as the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire charged over, they managed to injure 2 of the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Without slowing down at all, they continued toward the other 3 people hovering in the air. Bastards, who was in charge of this information? Why are there so many experts in Chanyang Prefecture? The 5 Heaven Saint Masters surrounding Chang Wuji also noticed what was happening below. Their expressions immediately changed, and they immediately sent 3 people to intercept the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire, leaving 2 behind to deal with Chang Wuji. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire did not say anything. An intense battle erupted as soon as they came into contact with the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Among the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, the red-haired old man who was a 4th cycle Heaven Saint Master faced off against Xiao Tian, while the others each blocked an imperial advisor of the Qin Empire. The middle-aged man who had captured the king of the Kingdom of Jessin also passed the king to the people beside him. He said, "I'll leave him to you. Watch him carefully. I'll go lend him a hand." The old man beside him held the king of the Kingdom of Jessin in his left hand and the unconscious Bai Dao in his right. He said, "Be careful." The middle-aged man sternly nodded. He took out his saint weapon and charged into the battle. Over a dozen Heaven Saint Masters engaged in an intense battle in the air above Chanyang Prefecture. The red-haired old man had only exchanged a few blows with Xiao Tian when he was struck in the chest by a palm strike. He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood as his face paled in a single moment. Xiao Tian was a 5th cycle Heaven Saint Master and an imperial advisor of the Qin Empire. His battle prowess was unrivaled even among 5th cycle Heaven Saint Masters. His battle prowess was no weaker than a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master, so the difference between him and the red-haired old man was extremely great. They were not even on the same level. After witnessing Xiao Yin's strength, the red-haired old man's expression became more serious. He shouted, "There are no experts like you in the Kingdom of Jessin. You are not from the kingdom of Jessen. Who are you? Xiao Tian couldn't be bothered to answer. Without saying a word, the saint weapon in his hand continuously attacked the red-haired old man. Soon, the red-haired old man was forced to the point where he couldn't fight back at all. All he could do was block the attacks. Quickly come and help me. Having fallen into such a dangerous situation, the red-haired old man couldn't care less about his face anymore, and he shouted loudly for help. Hearing the old man's call for help, two pale-faced Heaven Saint Masters with a trickle of blood at the corner of their mouths immediately joined in. They worked together to stop Xiao Tian. The two of them were the people who had wanted to go to Chanyang Prefecture to capture the Glam Princess, but the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had suddenly appeared and injured them as soon as they clashed. However, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had already heavily injured the two of them. They could only use 70 or 80% of their battle prowess at most. Even when they worked together with the red-haired old man, they were unable to suppress Xiao Tian. They could only barely maintain the balance. Chang Wuji's pressure immediately decreased after losing 3 opponents. With his strength that was basically on par with Xiao Tian, he managed to make up for his disadvantage in just a few exchanges, suppressing the 2/3 cycle Heaven Saint Masters and preventing them from fighting back. Out of the 10 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, one of them had to take care of the king and by Dao of the Kingdom of Jessen, so only 9 people participated in the battle. Out of the 9, Xiao Tian fought 3 by himself, while Chang Wuji fought 2. Both of them held the upper hand. The remaining 4 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom engaged in an intense battle with the 4 Imperial Advisors of the Qin Empire. Qing Xiaofan, Dong Yijunbai, Chao Kaqin, and Tian Luo. 2 of the Imperial Advisors of the Qin Empire were 3rd Cycle Heaven Saint Masters, while the other 2 were 4th Cycle Heaven Saint Masters. They were an entire level stronger than their opponents. Coupled with their extraordinary battle prowess, they completely suppressed the experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom as soon as they clashed. Very few people of the same level of strength could defeat them in a one-on-one battle. After all, the Qin Empire was one of the 8 great kingdoms on the Tianyuan continent, second only to the 3 great empires. The people who could become imperial advisors of the Qin Empire were the cream of the crop, the elites of the elites. The battle between 15 Heaven Saint Masters could be described as earth-shaking. Every time they clashed, every clash of energy would erupt with a great boom. The deafening sound reverberated far and wide, reaching all of Lore City. At that moment, everyone in the city stopped what they were doing and stared in the direction of Chanyang Prefecture curiously. Even the mercenaries who were dining in the restaurant ran out of the street or climbed up to the roof of the restaurant to look in the direction of the sound. All kinds of discussions were incessant. What's going on? Why is there such a great disturbance all of a sudden? The sound seems to have come from Chanyang Prefecture. What's going on in Chanyang Prefecture? The disturbance caused by the battle between over a dozen Heaven Saint Masters was just too great. All of Lore City had been alarmed. Even though they were very far away, a few experts were still able to sense the violent ripples of energy in the air. In a courtyard belonging to a mercenary group in Lore City, a bare-chested, burly man quickly walked out of his room. He stared at the sky with an extremely stern expression and said in surprise, "What's going on? The energy of the world is actually rippling so violently. Don't tell me there's a battle between Heaven Saint Masters?" The Earth Saint Masters of the 3 other large clans of Lore City all walked out of their rooms as well. They all stared at the sky in shock. The energy ripples in the sky were just too violent. As long as they were Earth Saint Masters, they could clearly sense them. The vast and boundless energy ripples caused them to shudder. The ripples from the battle between over a dozen Heaven Saint Masters were far more violent and powerful than a battle between just a few Heaven Saint Masters. The energy ripples are coming from the direction of Chanyang Prefecture. Don't tell me there's a battle in Chanyang Prefecture? Only Chanyang Prefecture has Heaven Saint Masters in Lore City. Just what's going on in Chanyang Prefecture? The people of the 3 large clans and the Earth Saint Masters who remained in Lore City all guessed. They were extremely curious, so they all hurried in the direction of Chanyang Prefecture. The City Lord's estate in Lore City was also alarmed. The City Lord led a few Earth Saint Masters and quickly rode a few magical beasts to Chanyang Prefecture. Now, all the Earth Saint Masters in Lore City guessed that there was a battle between Heaven Saint Masters in Chanyang Prefecture. All of them stopped what they were doing and hurried in the direction of Chanyang Prefecture. No matter what happened in Chanyang Prefecture, a battle between Heaven Saint Masters was not to be missed. This was an opportunity for them. If they were lucky, they might be able to comprehend the mysteries of how Heaven's Saint Masters control the energy of the world from a battle. From there, they might be able to break through and reach a higher level of cultivation. Now, Chanyang Prefecture was in chaos. Over a dozen Heaven's Saint Masters were fighting above. The shockwaves of energy caused the people of Chanyang Prefecture to suffer greatly. The entire Chanyang Prefecture was destroyed in an instant. A large number of guards and servants fled in all directions. Quite a few people were struck by the shockwaves of energy from above, dying a violent death. In just a few short breaths, not a single intact house could be found in the huge Chanyang Prefecture. All the houses and buildings had been destroyed. Even the discussion hall in the center of Chanyang Prefecture had collapsed. The library where the martial arts manuals were stored had also collapsed. The tower that was several dozen meters tall had directly collapsed, destroying a large number of buildings. A few unlucky servants had even been crushed by the tower, as they constantly let out miserable cries. Patriarch, run! Hide! A few guards loyally protected Chanyang Ba as they forcefully pulled Chanyang Ba to the basement. First, madam, let's go. Some of the guards immediately pulled the panic-stricken Ling Long far away. A ball of flame shot down from above and directly hit a house. Flames shot up into the sky, and the entire house seemed to have been engulfed in a raging fire. Ahu, Ahu, go save our Ahu. Ahu is still in the house. Ling Long stared at the raging fire in an extremely urgent manner as she cried out in a sobbing voice. You protect the first madam. I'll go save the first young master. A guard captain ordered a person to immediately charge into the raging fire and rescue Chanyang Ba from inside. Quickly cover the second madam and go to the basement. Under the protection of several guards, Yu Fengyin also ran towards the basement with a panicked expression. At the same time, Bai Yuntian also ran out of the house under the protection of a few guards. Fourth madam, it's very dangerous outside. Quickly go to the basement. A guard captain hurriedly said. As soon as he finished speaking, a few strands of sword chi shot down from above, leaving behind a few bottomless holes in the ground. The expression on the captain's face immediately froze. Soon after, a stream of blood flowed from the top of his head and flowed down his resolute face. Captain, what's wrong? The guards around by Yuntian all cried out. They were filled with grief, and in the end, they could only watch as their captain collapsed in front of them. We can't waste any more time. Hurry and escort the fourth madam to the basement. The guards endured their grief and immediately used their bodies to shield Bai Yuntian as they ran to the basement. At this time, another powerful energy storm wreaked havoc down from the sky and lifted a nearby hall from the ground. It wanted to press down in the direction of Bai Yuntian and made the complexion of several guards change drastically. At this moment, a pale green light flashed and disappeared. Ming Luo, who was dressed in white, appeared in front of them. He slashed out a sword chi and cut the 30-meter-tall hall into two halves, resolving the crisis that they were in. Ming Dong stared at the incoming energy storm and sternly said, I'll open the way. Duga Feng, I'll leave Ani Bai's safety to you. You must protect Ani Bai well. If anything happens to her, neither of us will be able to answer to Jinshin. Dugu Feng stood to one side and cautiously looked around. He sternly said, I'll do my best, but there are just too many Heaven Saint Masters fighting. In front of the powerful energy shockwaves, even the two of us need to be extremely careful. You have to look after me as well. Chapter 475. With the protection of the two Earth Saint Masters, Ming Dong and Dugu Feng, Bai Yuntian's safety was guaranteed. Princess Yu had always been by Bai Yuntian's side, so she was also very safe. At this moment, A few more balls of powerful energy shot down from the sky and exploded nearby, creating a few deep craters in the ground. Large amounts of rocks shot in all directions toward Ming Dong and the others. "Be careful!" Ming Dong yelled out and stepped in front of Bai Yun Tian and the Glam Princess. The sword in his hand turned into a blur as he rapidly swung it, blocking the rocks that shot toward him. Du Gufeng was also holding a fiery red great sword in his hand as he stood on the other side. Although the two of them were quite strong, there were simply too many stones. Moreover, there were also waves of energy storms attacking them from time to time. This caused some of the stones to slip through the net. A finger-sized stone broke through the defensive line of the two and brushed past Bai Yuntian's forehead. It left a small wound on Bai Yuntian's forehead. Bright red blood flowed out from the wound. Ah! A painful groan came from Bai Yun Tian's side, only to see Grand Princess Yu clutching her left shoulder with a face full of pain. Traces of blood flowed out from the gaps between her fingers, and the clothes on her shoulder were quickly dyed red with blood. What's wrong?" Bai Yun Tian ignored the wound on her forehead and anxiously looked at Yu, who was in pain. I'm fine," Yu said softly, but her pained expression showed just how much pain she was in. Seeing that Bai Yun Tian and you were both injured, Ming Dong and Du Gufeng, who were responsible for protecting them, both changed their expressions. "God damn it!" Ming Dong cursed and said, "The battle above is becoming more and more intense. We can't delay any longer. Let's hurry to the basement." The few of them immediately sped up and hurried to the basement. The battle in the sky was becoming more and more intense. Although the experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers, the difference in individual strength between them and the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire was just too great. As a result, the 9 experts were completely suppressed by the 6 experts of the Chanyang Prefecture. They were basically powerless to fight back and were forced to use their battle skills. Various Earth-tier battle skills were used by the 9 experts, clashing with the experts from the Chanyang clan. The ripples of energy that erupted were so vast that they could shake the surroundings. The surrounding space violently distorted, as if it was about to collapse from the pressure. Although there was an extremely large difference between an Earth-tier battle skill and a Heaven-tier battle skill. An Earth-tier battle skill used by a Heaven Saint Master could not be underestimated, especially when 9 Heaven battle skills were used at the same time. The powerful shockwaves of energy were almost equivalent to several Heaven battle skills clashing with each other, almost equivalent to the sky. Ark! Suddenly, a miserable cry rang out. The miserable and pained voice drowned out the booms of the battle. The entire right arm of one of the experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had been chopped off by Chong Wuji. The right arm fell from the sky as blood spurted out like a fountain, dyeing the sky red. Intense, killing intent flashed through Chong Wuji's eyes. He took a few steps in the air and chased after the person who constantly retreated. He then stabbed out with lightning speed, directly piercing through the person's chest. "Elder Pingyun!" The other expert who was fighting against Chong Wuji cried out. He immediately charged over in an attempt to save the expert whose chest had been pierced. Chong Wuji's face turned cold. He pulled out his huge sword from the expert's chest and swung it at the incoming expert as hard as he could. How could the expert, who was only a 3rd cycle Heaven Saint Master, be Chong Wuji's opponent? His saint weapon was struck by Chong Wuji's sword, and the powerful force sent him flying far away. Chong Wuji's face was extremely sunken as killing intent surged in his eyes. How could he not know what was happening in Chanyang Prefecture below? However, he was firmly entangled by the two of them, so he could not free himself to save the people below. Chong Wuji's gaze locked onto the expert whose chest had been pierced again. He took a large stride through the air and rapidly approached the expert. He raised his blade and swung it at the expert's head again. Although he could easily kill his opponent with a Heaven-tier battle skill, just the Chanyang clan below would not be able to endure it, let alone the consumption of Saint Force. A single Heaven-tier battle skill would probably raze the entire clan to the ground. The expert's face immediately changed when he saw the huge sword rapidly approaching him. First, he had lost his right arm, and then his chest had been pierced through. He was already extremely heavily injured, so he was unable to block the thunderous strike at all. His body immediately began to sink. Chang Wuji snorted coldly as a 10-meter-long streak of light shot out from the tip of his sword. It slashed down with lightning-like speed, cleaving the expert's head in half and wiping out his soul. The strongest expert of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had died at Chang Wuji's hands just like that. Elder Ping Yun. A cry rang out. The expert who had been sent flying by Chang Wuji just happened to see this and cried out sorrowfully. Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, I'll definitely make you pay a heavy price today. Chang Wuji roared and immediately charged at him with his huge sword. Seeing that Chang Wuji had already killed one person, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire seemed to have been provoked. Their attacks became even more ruthless. In just a few short exchanges, they had already heavily injured their opponent, causing him to spit out mouthfuls of blood. He was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Bang! Suddenly, a scarlet flower of blood blossomed in the air. Xiao Tian's palm landed on an expert's forehead, and the powerful force directly shattered his opponent's head. The second expert of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had died. We can't beat them, retreat. The deaths of 2 experts in quick succession dealt a huge blow to the other experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. One of them gave up on the idea of continuing the fight and immediately yelled out, abandoning his opponent and fleeing outside. If I let you escape, I, Qing Xiaofan, won't have the face to return. His opponent, Qing Xiaofan, sneered. Surging wind elemental energy gathered around him as he quickly chased after the escaping expert. The experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom were completely suppressed by their opponents. Although they could preserve their lives for a short period of time, they couldn't hold on for too long. Everyone understood that they had suffered a setback this time and had long lost the courage to continue fighting. Seeing that someone had taken the lead, the others didn't want to fall behind. They all abandoned their opponents and fled outside. After this period of battle, 2 of the 9 of them had died, and the other 7 were all heavily injured. However, their opponents were completely unharmed. If they continued to fight like this, they probably wouldn't even have the strength to escape. You want to leave? Not so easy. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire chased after them relentlessly. With Xiao Tian in the lead, they all chased after them. Only Chang Wuji didn't chase after them because he was worried about the safety of Chanyang Prefecture. At this moment, experts who had heard the news rushed over from all directions. They arrived around Chanyang Prefecture and saw a dozen figures fighting intensely in the sky from afar. They couldn't help but be shocked beyond belief. At the peak of the Kingdom of Jessin, there were only 10 Heaven Saint Masters on the surface. Including Chang Wuji, who was unknown to outsiders, there were only 11. At this moment, a dozen experts had appeared all of a sudden. This had already surpassed the number of experts the Kingdom of Jessin had at its peak. As for Chanyang Prefecture, due to the aftermath of the battle, it had already become a mess. All the houses had collapsed, turning into ruins. The servants and guards had all suffered heavy casualties. Although the group of people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had fled, the battle in the sky still hadn't stopped. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire all possessed astonishing battle prowess as they chased after the group of people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Qing Xiaofan's wind-attributed saint force allowed him to control the element of wind. His speed was the fastest among the 5, and he quickly caught up to his opponent. Without holding back, he attacked with all his strength, using a high-level Earth-tier battle skill to cut off the head of the heavily injured expert. The expert who had lost his head didn't immediately die. Instead, he controlled his head and fled into the distance in panic. In order to kill a Heaven Saint Master, one had to destroy their soul. However, a Heaven Saint Master with only a head left was even more fragile. Not only did he have no battle prowess, but his speed of escape was also much slower. In the blink of an eye, Qing Xiaofan had caught up and chopped his head in half. At this moment, The other four imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had caught up to the group of people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. An intense battle once again took place in the sky. The surging waves of energy affected the area below, causing several streets to be heavily damaged. A large number of buildings collapsed as countless people fled into the distance in panic. A few of the unlucky people were directly struck by the shock waves of energy, dying a violent death. After fighting for a while, another expert from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom died to Xiao Tian's hands. His forehead had been pierced by Xiao Tian's sword, and his soul had been wiped out. His corpse directly fell from the sky, landing on the street. The expert who had captured the king and Bai Dao also understood that it would be very difficult for them to leave this place today if they did not do anything. Thinking up to there, he immediately tossed the king and the black-armored Bai Dao far away in different directions. He yelled out, "If you want the king's life, go catch him." The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had stayed in Chanyang Prefecture for a few days. They had learned many things from their conversations with Chanyang Ba. They all understood the identities of the two people. One was the future father-in-law of the imperial protector, while the other was the imperial protector's uncle. Nothing could happen to either of them, so without any hesitation, 2 of the imperial advisors immediately abandoned their opponents to save the king and Bai Dao. The expert did not flee by himself after throwing away the king and Bai Dao's bags. He immediately drew his saint weapon and unleashed an earth-tier battle skill to save his companion. The other 2 experts who were free did not flee by themselves either. Ignoring their injuries, they used the short time their opponents had taken to save the king and Bai Dao to assist their companions in repelling the 3 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. Afterward, they all used everything they had to flee in a horrible manner. In just a few seconds, the king and Bai Dao had been saved by the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. One of them was weak while the other was still unconscious. If they were to fall from the sky like this, they would be heavily injured even if they managed to survive. "We can't let them escape like this." Luo Tian emotionlessly stared at the people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. He wanted to immediately chase after them. Xiao Tian stopped Luo Tian's actions and sternly said, "Don't chase after them for now. Sir Imperial Protector won't just let this matter slide. The matter at hand is to return to Chanyang Prefecture to save the people. Yes, saving the people is more important. If something happens to any of the important people, it'll be difficult for us to explain ourselves," Dong Yi Junbai agreed. Afterwards, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Kingdom returned to the Chanyang clan at the same time, leaving behind the corpses of the 2 experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom on the streets. The battle that had not lasted for long, but it had shaken up the entire Lore City, had finally come to an end. Chapter 476. It was impossible to find a single undamaged house in Chanyang Prefecture. The entire place was a complete mess. All the houses and halls had collapsed. Many injured guards moved through the ruins with stiff expressions as they dealt with the corpses of their companions. Their faces were filled with deep sorrow. Today was an unforgettable and tragic day for Chanyang Prefecture. The shockwaves of energy from the battle between more than 10 Heaven Saint Masters had caused a large number of guards and servants to lose their lives. Countless people had been injured. The casualties were extremely heavy. The entire Chanyang Prefecture was filled with a heavy atmosphere of sorrow. The atmosphere was extremely stifling. Chang Wuji slowly walked out of the basement with heavy steps. Compared to before, the expression on his face was much more relaxed now, and he secretly heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Although Chanyang Prefecture had suffered heavy losses in this battle, the important figures of the clan had not suffered any losses. Only a few people had been injured, but it was nothing serious. Chang Wuji arrived at the center of Chanyang Prefecture. His deep eyes slowly swept through the surroundings. In the end, he let out a long sigh. His face was filled with sorrow. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire also descended from the sky. They stood by Chang Wuji's side. Xiao Tian was the first to ask, "Chang Wuji, how is the situation of the Patriarch and the 4th Madam? Have they been injured?" The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire were most concerned about Chanyang Ba and Bai Yuntian because they were the parents of the imperial protector. Chang Wuji shook his head and said, "Thank you for your concern, Imperial Advisor. Although the Patriarch and the Fourth Madam have suffered some light injuries, they are fine." With that, the 5 Imperial Advisors of the Qin Empire could not help but let out a sigh of relief. If anything had happened to Changyang Ba and Bai Yun Tian, they really would not have been able to explain it to the Imperial Protector. The secret of the 5 Imperial Advisors of the Qin Empire in Chanyang Prefecture had never been made public. When the people who had come to watch the show saw the Heaven Saint Masters who had just repelled the 10 experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom land in Chanyang Prefecture, they were all surprised. They began to discuss among themselves. No one had thought that so many Heaven Saint Masters would be hidden in Chanyang Prefecture. This force was just too great. Cough, cough. See, Senior Chang Wuji, how is you, The king coughed as he spoke. He would cough up some blood from time to time. Clearly, he had suffered some internal injuries. Your Majesty, don't worry. Princess Glan is fine. Chang Wuji said. That's good, that's good. His Majesty's heart finally calmed down. Yu Yu was the daughter he doted on the most, so he was naturally very concerned about his daughter's safety. Afterwards, the city lord of Lore City and the representatives of the 3 other clans led a few experts from their clans to Chanyang Prefecture to express their condolences. They all spoke some words of concern with a pained expression. However, their gazes were mostly focused on the 5 Imperial Advisors of the Qin Empire. They were all filled with doubt and surprise. The 3 clans of Lore City had all participated in the battle at the Northern Fort, so they obviously recognized the 5 Imperial Advisors of the Qin Empire. Now that they saw the 5 Imperial Advisors of the Qin Empire all gathered in Chanyang Prefecture and even helped Chanyang Prefecture fend off the invaders, they could not help but feel extremely curious. They wondered what the relationship between the 5 Imperial Advisors of the Qin Empire and Chanyang Prefecture was. However, they did not dare to ask such a question, so they could only keep it to themselves and make wild guesses. The city lord of Lore City and the 3 clans were not in a hurry to leave. Instead, they each sent a portion of their people to help Chanyang Prefecture deal with the aftermath. Although Chanyang Prefecture had suffered such a calamity and its entire estate had been destroyed, its prestige had not decreased at all. Instead, it was even greater than before. After all, several peak Heaven Saint Masters had appeared from Chanyang Prefecture this time. They had even repelled the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, who outnumbered them. Suddenly, a streak of azure light shot through the sky. It rapidly flew from the horizon to Chanyang Prefecture with lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, it arrived above Chanyang Prefecture and hovered in the air. Another Heaven Saint Master has come. What a fast flying speed. Many people below noticed the figure in the sky and immediately cried out in surprise. They stared at the sky in bewilderment, not knowing if it was a friend or foe. The 5 Imperial Advisors of the Qin Empire and Chang Wuji's expression changed slightly. They immediately raised their heads to look, a sharp light flashing in their eyes. However, when they saw the appearance of the figure in the sky, they simultaneously revealed a trace of joy. The 4th young master has returned, Lord Imperial Protector. The azure figure was Jianshin. After 2 days of non-stop travel, Jianshin had finally returned to Lore City from the Saint Ruler's dwelling. Jianshin hovered in the air, staring blankly at the scene below. His eyes were filled with disbelief. In just a few short days, Chanyang Prefecture had undergone such a great change. The originally grand mansion and continuous buildings had all disappeared, leaving behind only ruins and craters riddled with holes, as well as corpses covered in blood. Is this really Chanyang Prefecture? Just what has happened? Jianshin stared blankly at the scene below as he muttered to himself. The joy he felt from obtaining the skeleton of a saint ruler was completely washed away in an instant. Jianshin's expression quickly darkened. He slowly descended from the sky, landing in the ruins. Chang Wuji and the 5 Imperial Advisors of the Qin Empire arrived beside Jianshin at the same time. However, before they could speak, Jianshin spoke first. Changbo, just what has happened here? Why has Chanyang Prefecture become like this? Jianshin's voice was filled with urgency, but his face was filled with confusion. He had just returned, so he had no idea what had happened. Why had Changyang Prefecture become like this? Chang Wuji let out a long sigh and said, "Fourth young master, 10 experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom came to Changyang Prefecture with His Majesty and by Dao. They arrogantly said that they wanted to capture you. In the end, we had a great battle with them in the air, and the shockwaves from the battle have reduced Changyang Prefecture to this." A powerful killing intent erupted from Jinshin when he heard that. Jinshin's eyes immediately became extremely sharp, as if he was a hungry tiger. It was chilling. The temperature in the surroundings rapidly plummeted, making a few weaker people feel like they had suddenly fallen into a cavern of ice. They could not help but shiver. "The Heavenly Eagle Kingdom," Jianshan said through gritted teeth. His knuckles cracked from his clenched fists. This time, the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had completely infuriated him. Suddenly, Jianshan seemed to think of something. His face changed slightly, and he asked in a hurry, "Changbo, where are my father and mother? Are they all right?" "The Patriarch and the fourth madam are both in the basement. They're only slightly injured," said Chang Wuji. As soon as Chang Wuji finished speaking, Jianshan turned into a blur and charged into the basement like a bolt of lightning. The basement was 100 meters underground. It was rather dim, but it was very large. Even if it could hold over 1,000 people, it would not be crowded at all. There were many rooms in there as well. When Jianshan entered the basement, he saw a few upper echelon and guards of Changyang Prefecture making their way out with heavy expressions. "Fourth young master." A few of the guards recognized Jianshan, so they all bowed. "Where's my mother?" Jianshan immediately stopped the guard and asked. His gaze was as sharp as a blade, so the guard did not dare to look him in the eye. "The fourth madam is in the largest room," the guard replied in a rather panicked manner. Jianshan immediately ran in and arrived in the largest room in the basement very soon. However, it would be more appropriate to describe this room as a cave. As soon as he entered the room, Jianshan discovered that not only were his parents there, but even his first aunt, Ling Long, second aunt, Yu Fengyan, third aunt by Yu Shuang, and third brother, Changyang Ku, were all gathered there. They were all in horrible shape. Their clothes were stained with blood, and the fear in their eyes had yet to recede. At the entrance, Ming Dong and Dugafeng were acting as guards. The three of them only communicated with their eyes when they saw each other. They did not say anything. "Mother, are you all right?" Jianshan quickly walked over. His face was filled with concern. However, in the next moment, Jianshan's face changed. He stared at the wound on by Yuntian's forehead and said with a trembling voice, "Mother, you're injured." "Xiang'er, I'm fine. Check on Yu'er quickly. She's very heavily injured." Bai Yuntian did not care about her injuries at all, but she was very concerned about her daughter-in-law. The princess currently lay on the bed with a pale face. She seemed to be in great pain. Jianshan came to the bed and checked the Glen princess injuries. His face became rather stern. The Glen princess' left shoulder had been injured by a piece of rock, and a thumb-sized rock was still lodged in her body. There was also a wound on the left side of her back, which was also caused by a piece of rock. The rock had entered her body and almost injured her heart. It was extremely dangerous. Even her organs had been severely shaken, causing her to bleed internally. "Xiang'er, I know you have the ability to save Yu'er. You should quickly save Yu'er. Her injuries are very serious," Bai Yuntian whispered to Jianshan. Her face was filled with worry. She was afraid that something bad would happen to the princess. Jianshan nodded and said, "The battle outside has stopped. Mother, you should go out and take a look. I'll save you first." Bai Yuntian and the others did not object. After a few words, they walked out of the basement, leaving only Jianshan and the princess in the room. "Brother will also go out first." Ming Dong also pulled Jianshan out of the basement. If it was any other time, Ming Dong would definitely use this matter to tease Jianshan. However, with such a thing happening in Changyang Prefecture, Ming Dong did not have the mood to do so. After everyone left, Jianshan gently closed the door and slowly walked to the bedside. He looked at the princess who was lying on the bed with a complicated expression. The princess had only been in Changyang Prefecture for a few days, but she had already suffered such injuries. This made Jianshan feel very apologetic. He felt that he owed her something. Although the princess was heavily injured, she was still conscious. Her limpid eyes had a strange luster as she stared at Jianshan nervously. Her pale face also had a faint layer of red, revealing the shyness of a woman. In her heart, while she was afraid, there was also a hint of joy and anticipation. Chapter 477. Yu closed her eyes and replied softly. However, the way Jianshan addressed her made her feel unhappy and disappointed. The title Princess of Gran was given to her by the king. Her real name was Yu. Back when they were in the garden of the kingdom of Jessen, Yu had already made it clear to Jianshan that he could address her by her name. Now that Jianshan addressed her with the word princess, she couldn't help but feel that the relationship between her and Jianshan was still so distant. Jianshan naturally didn't understand Yu's thoughts. He stared at the wound on Yu's shoulder for a moment and muttered to himself. Then, he looked into the distance. There was a pair of scissors, gauze, and some top-notch healing medicine prepared. Jianshan picked up a pair of scissors and slowly cut off Yu's clothes. After a series of kacha-kacha sounds, Yu's luxurious robe was cut out in a circle, revealing her white and tender skin. Even a corner of her pink undergarment could be seen. Jianshan could clearly feel Yu's heartbeat quickening. Hence, he explained, Princess Yu, the crushed stone is still in your body. I have to remove it before I can heal you. Yu closed her eyes tightly as she lay on the bed, not saying a word. However, from her stiff body, one could feel the nervousness in her heart. Feeling the cold sensation from her left shoulder, Yu understood that a corner of her body had been completely exposed to a man's eyes. This caused her cheeks to turn slightly red. Ever since she was born, no man had ever seen her body. Jianshan found some gauze and first wiped away the bloodstains around Yu's wound. Then, he slowly placed his palm on the wound. When Jianshan's palm came into contact with Yu's shoulder, Yu's body trembled. Due to her nervousness, her entire body tensed up in an instant. Jianshan sucked in a deep breath. Being so intimate with a girl caused his heart to be far from as calm as it appeared on the surface. However, he quickly calmed down. His eyes were clear as he stared straight at Yu's wound. He said in a low voice, Princess Yu, I'll suck out the stone from your body. Bear with it. Yu's voice was as soft as a mosquito. Her face was flushed red, and she closed her eyes, not daring to look at Jianshan. Jianshan calmed down. He placed his palm on Yu's shoulder and sucked. Along with a painful groan from Princess Gran's throat, a stone covered in blood was sucked out by Jianshan. When a stone was pulled out, fresh blood gushed out from Princess Gran's wound like a fountain. At this moment, Jianshan slowly raised his left hand. A ball of milky white light gathered in his palm. The light grew brighter and brighter. In less than a breath's time, the faint white light turned into a dazzling white light. It illuminated the dark room. Although Yu's eyes were closed, she could still feel the dazzling light outside. She opened her eyes out of curiosity and saw a ball of white light gathering in Jianshan's hand. Seeing this scene, Yu's beautiful eyes opened wide. Her face was filled with disbelief. Although she was not a Radiant Saint Master, she was a princess of a kingdom. She had seen Radiant Saint Force many times. That unique white light was something that almost no power could imitate. Naturally, she could recognize that this was Radiant Saint Force that only Radiant Saint Masters could control. Jianshan's hand slowly pressed down on Yu's shoulder wound. He let the Radiant Saint Force heal the wound on her shoulder. Now that Jianshan was a Class 6 Radiant Saint Master, his Radiant Saint Force had become extremely powerful. His healing ability was also far greater than before. Coupled with the fact that Yu's shoulder wound was only caused by a normal stone, it only took a few seconds for the wound to heal completely. Not even a scar remained. Changyang Shoten, why? You're actually a Radiant Saint Master as well. Yu stared at Jianshan in shock. She found it difficult to calm down. On the Tian Yuan continent, there had never been a person who possessed two abilities at the same time. Not only did he possess great talent for cultivation, but he was also a high-class Radiant Saint Master as well. Jianshan smiled. Princess Yu, I hope you can keep this a secret from me. Yu stared at Jianshun with a strange light in her eyes. She nodded forcefully. I will. I definitely won't tell anyone. At that moment, Jianshun's tall figure seemed even more perfect in Yu Yu's heart. Princess Yu Yu, let me continue healing the wound on your back. Yu Yu hesitated slightly when she heard that, but she still nodded gently in the end. She did not turn down his offer. However, just when she wanted to turn around, she pulled at the wound on her back, causing her face to suddenly pale. Her face was filled with pain. You better lie down and not move. Let me do it. Jianshun hurriedly stopped Sima, Yu Yu's actions, and helped the Grand Princess turn her body over. Then, he helped Sima Yu Yu treat the wound on her back. Jianshun and Yu Yu stayed in the basement for 2 whole hours before emerging side by side. With Jianshun's abilities as a Class 6 Radiant Saint Master, he could even save someone on the brink of death. Yu Yu's wounds were no problem at all. He healed Yu Yu effortlessly. Yu Yu had already changed into a new set of clothes, but there was still a trace of shyness on her cheeks. She would secretly glance at Jianshun from time to time. Her eyes rippled with love, accompanied by a trace of shyness. The king and Changyangba who saw this revealed a meaningful smile. A few important people of Changyang Prefecture, the city lord of Lore City, and the representatives of the 3 other clans were all gathered there. Jianshun's mother and aunts had all been taken away by the guards to heal, so they did not see Bai Yuntian's figure. After leaving the basement, Jianshun returned to normal. He lost the calmness he had in the basement. He arrived before Changbo with a sunken face and said, Changbo, how great are our losses? Our losses are great. Currently, the death toll is over 200 and the number of injured is uncountable. In addition, there are many guards and servants whose corpses are buried in the rubble. We are still trying to rescue them. As for the buildings, they have all been destroyed. Changbo said with a long sigh. He was very sad. A strong killing intent flickered in Jianshun's eyes. His fists were already tightly clenched. He gritted his teeth and said, Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, I will definitely not let you off. Heavenly Eagle Kingdom is indeed too arrogant. The king also had an ugly expression on his face. He had been captured by the experts of Heavenly Eagle Kingdom who had broken into the palace. Naturally, he was very angry. 4th young master, we found a magical beast you were raising. At this moment, a guard ran out from the rubble with a snow-white little beast in his arms. He quickly walked to Jianshun's side. White tiger. Jianshun was shocked. He immediately took the white tiger from the guard's arms and carefully examined it. He saw that the white tiger's snow-white fur had already turned gray and was covered in dust. Its eyes were tightly shut, and its stomach was slightly moving up and down rhythmically. It was still sleeping soundly and digesting the medicinal effects. There were no major problems. Seeing that the white tiger was fine, Jianshun finally let out a sigh of relief. When he left a few days ago, he didn't know how dangerous this trip would be, so he didn't bring the white tiger with him. Instead, he fed the white tiger 10 pieces of heavenly and earthly treasures and let it enter a deep sleep to digest the medicinal effects. It still hasn't woken up yet. Changyang Prefecture needs to be rebuilt as soon as possible. Changbo, you go and arrange this matter. Changyangba said. Yes, I understand. Changbo nodded. With that, the city lord's eyes lit up. He said, Patriarch of the Changyang clan, leave the matter of the craftsmen to the city lord's estate. We will gather all the craftsmen in Lore City to rebuild Changyang Prefecture as soon as possible. Chapter 478. Changyangba politely declined the goodwill of the 3 major families of Lore City and the city lord's office. He said, Changyang Prefecture appreciates your kind intentions. Although Changyang Prefecture has suffered great losses from this disaster, it is still possible for us to build a new residence. In-law, why don't you build the new residence of Changyang Prefecture in the Imperial City? This way, it will be more convenient for our 2 families to communicate. This is also more in line with your identity as the Imperial Protector of the Kingdom of Jessen. The King of the Kingdom of Jessen said with a hopeful expression. If a powerful force like Changyang Prefecture was not kept in the Imperial City, it would be a great loss. If the new residence of Changyang Prefecture was moved to the Imperial City, then the defenses of the Imperial City would be even stronger. Even if something like today happened again, there would be experts who would come to the rescue in time. Changyangba hesitated. Although Changyang Prefecture was deeply rooted in Lore City, with the current strength and reputation of Changyang Prefecture, if they really wanted to move to the Imperial City, they would definitely be the most powerful force in the Imperial City. It would not cause too much damage. However, Changyang Prefecture had been rooted in Lore City for many years. If they really wanted to move, it would be a big deal. After all, the reason why Changyang Prefecture had chosen to take root in Lore City was all because of the arrangements of their ancestors. Seeing that Changyangba was moved, Chang Wuji's expression became serious. He said, "Master, this is not acceptable. Changyang Prefecture's location in Lore City was the decision of our master. This place is equivalent to the ancestral residence of Changyang Prefecture. How can we move at will?" Chang Wuji's position in Changyang Prefecture was very special. He was also the most senior person in Changyang Prefecture. Even the master of Changyang Prefecture did not dare to ignore his words. Seeing that Chang Wuji was firmly against it, Changyangba could only decline the king's invitation. His Majesty the king sighed in his heart and felt very disappointed. How much he wanted to pull Changyang Prefecture into the Imperial City. It was a powerful protective force. A group of guards and servants from Changyang Prefecture stayed behind to clean up the ruins. The old man stored all the precious books in the library into a space ring and preserved them perfectly. After all the arrangements were made, Changyang Prefecture booked a few inns nearby as temporary lodgings. At the same time, they summoned all the craftsmen in Lore City to work through the night, gathering over 1,000 craftsmen to work through the night to rebuild the mansion. His Majesty the King also issued an imperial edict, ordering the nearby cities to gather all kinds of precious construction materials and transport them to Lore City. This could be considered as contributing to the construction of the new mansion in Changyang Prefecture. After the imperial edict was issued, His Majesty the King did not stay for long because he was worried about the safety of the imperial palace. He also did not care about the injuries he had suffered and left in a hurry. However, because Jianshun was worried about His Majesty's safety, he specially asked Xiaotian and Qing Xiaofan to accompany His Majesty back. This could be considered as increasing the strength of the imperial palace's protection. The next day, Changyang Prefecture spent a large amount of money to hire over a dozen Radiant Saint Masters from Lore City and the nearby cities. They specialized in healing the injuries of important people who were injured. At the same time, they purchased a large amount of high-quality medicine for the use of the ordinary guards and servants. The space rings worn by the 4 experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom were also confiscated by Changyang Prefecture. They obtained a large amount of treasures from them, including quite a lot of monster cores and money. They even obtained a few high-level Earth-tier battle skills. Compared to the losses of Changyang Prefecture, they were not lacking at all. The task of rebuilding Changyang Prefecture was taken over by Changbo of his own accord. He was completely in charge of it, while the others were relatively free. In a room in the inn, Changyangba, by Yuntian, Jianshun, and Yu stood in front of the tightly shut door. Through the crack of the door, they could vaguely see traces of white light flickering inside. The 4 of them waited for an hour before the tightly shut door finally opened. 3 white-robed, middle-aged men with frail faces walked out tiredly. These 3 were all Class 4, Radiant Saint Masters from other cities. At the same time, they were also 3 of the 7 most powerful Radiant Saint Masters in the Kingdom of Jessen. The 3 middle-aged men simultaneously bowed to the 4 people standing outside the door and said, "Fourth young master, Patriarch, after the 3 of us did our best to treat him, the injuries of the injured person have stabilized. There are no major problems for the time being. He has already woken up and says he wants to see you. I've troubled the 3 of you." Changyangba exchanged some pleasantries with the 3 of them before entering the room. Jianshun, his mother, and Yu followed closely behind him. The person lying on the bed was the Black Armored Commander of the Black Armored Army, Bai Dao. However, his sturdy, pitch-black armor had been reduced to tatters, so it was easy to imagine just how heavily injured he was. Although Bai Dao had been treated by the 3 Class 4 radiant Saint Masters, his injuries were just too heavy. His internal injuries had not completely healed, so his face was pale. Bai Dao clearly let out a sigh of relief when he saw that Jianshun and the others were fine. He opened his mouth slightly and weakly asked, "How's the situation?" They obviously understood what Bai Dao was asking. Changyang Ba replied, "It's all thanks to the assistance of the 5 imperial advisors from the Qin Empire that we managed to repel the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. We even managed to kill 4 of their experts. The remaining people managed to escape in horrible shape with heavy injuries. However, our Changyang prefecture was affected by the battle. The entire estate was destroyed, and over 380 guards and servants died." Bai Dao clenched his fists tightly as the light of hatred flickered in his eyes. "We must take revenge for this. The people of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom are just too arrogant. They even destroyed a large portion of the imperial palace of the Kingdom of Jessen. Senior Yi Ming was also injured by them. They're coming for us. We're the ones who dragged everyone down. We almost caused His Majesty the King to die." Bai Yuntian's face was full of guilt. "Mother, this is all because of me. It's all my fault. Don't worry, I will definitely take revenge. I will make the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom pay an even heavier price," Jianshan said with a rather deep voice. Powerful killing intent flickered in his eyes. Bai Dao looked at Jianshan in admiration and said, "Xiang Tian, since all of this happened because of you, it's up to you to decide how to deal with the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. However, you can only rely on your own strength for this. The Kingdom of Jessen has just gone through a great battle, so it's weakened. It can't endure any more trouble, so it doesn't have any extra strength to deal with the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom." Jianshan nodded solemnly. "I understand, uncle. I already have a plan for dealing with the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Xiang Tian, you need to learn how to use all the resources you have. The Qin Empire allowed you to become the Imperial Protector because of your talent. Once you have enough strength in the future, the Qin Empire might need you for many things. As a result, you need to make good use of what you can. Don't waste it," Bai Dao said weakly. He was teaching Jianshan as an uncle. His gaze towards Jianshan was filled with gratification. It was the honor of the Bai family to have such an outstanding descendant. Jianshan accepted his uncle's teachings with a humble attitude, but he did not think so inside. He was not as old as he seemed on the surface. He had experienced even more things than Bai Dao, so how could he not think of problems that Bai Dao could think of? A rare sliver of concern appeared in Jianshan's eyes when he saw Bai Dao's pale face. Although he had only learned that he had an uncle when he was 15 and the two of them had not met often, Bai Dao was still his uncle and his mother's brother. No matter what, he was still a relative of his. With a flip of his hand, Jianshan pulled out a white jade bottle from his space ring. He poured out 2 round pills and passed them to Bai Dao. "Uncle, these are radiant spirit pills. They can heal your wounds even faster." Bai Dao did not refuse. He accepted the pills from Jianshan with a faint smile and said, "Xiang Tian, I'll be accepting these 2 pills. These are extremely precious items. They can only be created by Class 5 Radiant Saint Masters." Jianshan's interest was piqued when he heard that. He asked in a hurry, "How exactly do you make these radiant spirit pills?" "It's extremely troublesome to make. It requires the cooperation of a Class 5 Radiant Saint Master and an alchemist. It also requires the assistance of a few extremely precious ingredients. It'll fail if you're careless, so it's very difficult to make a radiant spirit pill. The higher the grade of the pill, the more troublesome it is to make," Bai Dao explained. A gleam of light flickered through Jianshan's eyes. He had already made up his mind that he would definitely find a way to create some radiant spirit pills when he had the time in the future. If he needed them in the future, he could use them to heal without exposing his radiant saint force. After leaving his uncle's room, Jianshan directly went to find Ming Dong and Dugu Feng. He said, "I'll be leaving for a while, so I'll have to trouble the 2 of you to look after my family." Ming Dong and Dugu Feng were not surprised at all when they heard that. It was as if they had already expected this. "Are you going to the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom?" Ming Dong asked. Jianshan arrived before the window and opened it. He looked at the ruined Changyang prefecture and said, "No, I'm going to the Qin Imperial Palace." "The Qin Empire?" Ming Dong cried out. He immediately guessed Jinshan's plan. Brother, don't tell me you're thinking about the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. I will destroy the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, Jinshan said with a deep voice. The Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had crossed his bottom line. This time, he wanted to make the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom truly disappear from the Tian Yuan continent. At the same time, he wanted to use the Qin Empire to intimidate everyone and announce to the world the relationship between the Kingdom of Jessen and the Qin Empire. After leaving Ming Dong's room, Jinshan immediately summoned Dongi Junbai, Tian Luo, and Chao Kachin. He asked, "Is there a way to locate the Kingdom of Jessen through a space gate?" "There is, but if you want to locate it accurately, you'll need to create a sensor," Chao Kachin said. Jinshan's face lit up. He asked, "Do you know how to create a sensor?" "Yes." "Good. Immediately go 10 kilometers outside of Lore City and create a sensor," Jinshan said. "Yes, Sir Imperial Protector." Chao Kachin clasped his hands and immediately left. After Chao Kachin left, only Tian Luo and Dongi Junbai were left in the room. Jinshan looked at the two of them and said solemnly, "Tian Luo, Dongi Junbai, I need to make a trip back to the Qin Empire. The few of you will stay here temporarily to protect Changyang Prefecture, especially my family. Nothing must happen to them." "Sir Imperial Protector, we will do our best to protect Changyang Prefecture," the two of them said in unison. Jinshan stood up from his chair and looked at the two of them with a solemn expression. He said, "I, Jinshan, will remember everyone's kindness in my heart. In the future, I will not mistreat everyone." Hearing this, Chao Kachin and Tian Luo were overjoyed. The reason why they followed Jinshan from the Qin Empire was because they saw Jinshan's talent. They were certain that Jinshan would soar in the future, so they took this opportunity to get closer to each other. Jinshan's words were like a promise to the two of them. They were overjoyed. Chapter 479. Jinshan left the inn and directly flew out of the city gates. He discovered Chao Kachin fiddling with something 10 kilometers away from the city walls. Jinshan arrived beside Chao Kachin and asked, "How is it? Is the sensor ready?" Chao Kachin held 2 fist-sized crystals in his hands. He inserted one of them into the ground before handing the other to Jinshan. He said, "It's just been done. Imperial Protector, the energy within these 2 crystals is exactly the same. There's a strange connection between them. All you have to do is give this crystal to the person who operates the space gate, and he'll use this crystal to set the other end of the space gate here. However, it's best if you bring a detailed map with you so that you can determine the approximate location faster." Jinshan took the crystal from Chao Kachin and studied it. It was a round, sparkling, translucent ball. It seemed like a transparent glass ball. A strange energy slowly pulsed within it. Jinshan found the energy to be extremely unfamiliar. He had never encountered it before. Jinshan placed the crystal ball into his space ring before returning to Lore City with Chao Kachin. The next morning, Jinshan bid farewell to his family and left the Kingdom of Jessen with a sleeping white tiger in his arms. Although Bai Yuntian was extremely reluctant to part with her son, she knew that the matter was simple. All she could do was watch her son leave with tears in her eyes. On the second day after Jinshan left the Kingdom of Jessen, 6 pale-faced and dispirited Heaven Saint Masters landed in the Imperial Palace. They directly entered the discussion hall in the center. The guards of the discussion hall clearly recognized them. After bowing to the 6 of them politely, they immediately ran off to inform the king. The 6 experts did not hold back after entering the discussion hall. They directly sat down on the chairs on the 2 sides. Their faces were all heavy as they sat there silently. The atmosphere was rather oppressive. Soon, a hearty laugh came from outside. "Ha! I didn't expect seniors to return so quickly. You're even faster than this king had expected. However, how could the Kingdom of Jessen withstand the simultaneous attacks of seniors? I wonder if that brat Changyang Shodan has been eliminated. If he's still alive, he'll definitely be a threat to my Heavenly Eagle Kingdom in the future." The king of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom walked in with a smile on his face. From the brilliant smile on his face, one could tell that he was in a very good mood. The 6 powerhouses sat there with pained expressions on their faces, not saying a word. None of them answered the king. The king strode into the discussion hall. At this moment, he discovered that the atmosphere in the hall was a little off. He glanced at the 6 experts on both sides in suspicion, but when he saw their pale faces and dispirited appearances, his heart immediately sank. The smile on his face gradually vanished. From the expressions of the 6 experts, the king of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom could already guess that the outcome of the matter was not what he had imagined. The king's face became stern as he asked, "Seniors, just what happened?" "Sigh." One of the experts sighed at the sky. His face was filled with sorrow as he said, "This time, we've really screwed up. Originally, everything was going smoothly. However, when we went to Changyang Prefecture to capture Changyang Shodan, 5 Heaven Saint Masters suddenly charged out of Changyang Prefecture. Every single one of them was extremely powerful. Even when we worked together, we were no match for them. In the end, 4 of us were killed by them. Even the 6 of us were almost unable to make it back. In the end, we had to rely on the hostages in our hands to hold back 2 of them, allowing us to work together and escape." Hearing this, the king of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom was so shocked that he could not speak. He was completely stunned. This outcome was completely different from what he had imagined. He had never imagined that the 10 Heaven Saint Masters of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom who had rushed to the Kingdom of Jessen at the same time would actually end up in such a miserable state. Not only had 4 of them died, but the remaining few had also luckily escaped with their lives. "Your Majesty, we suspect that the 5 powerful Heaven Saint Masters in Changyang Prefecture are the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. Only they possess such great strength," the red-haired old man said with a heavy voice. His face was extremely ugly. Hearing this, the king seemed to have thought of something. His face changed drastically as he said with a trembling voice, Could it be that the Changyang Prefecture and the Qin Empire have some sort of relationship? I hope that our suspicions are wrong." The red-haired old man sighed softly. In the blink of an eye, Jianshan had already left the Kingdom of Jessen for several days. After several days of hurrying, he had already traveled close to 100,000 kilometers. In the end, he stopped in a first-class city, Wallerant. Wallerant was located within the Zhuya Kingdom. It was the place where Jianshan and Qin Shao had first met. He had not seen Qin Shao for half a year, so he could not help but miss him. As a result, he took the opportunity of passing by the Zhuya Kingdom to take a look. Wallerant had not changed much compared to when Jianshan had first arrived. It was still the same as before. Jianshan walked into the city from the outside. He looked around as he recalled the first time he and Jianshan had come to Wallerant, causing his expression to become rather absent-minded. Unknowingly, Jianshan had already arrived at the entrance of the Tianqin clan's estate. He instinctively walked toward the entrance, but as soon as he approached, he was stopped by the guards at the entrance. "Halt! This is the estate of the Tianqin clan. Unauthorized personnel are prohibited from entering." The guard at the entrance said indifferently as he stared at Jianshan expressionlessly. Jianshan glanced at the guards at the entrance. They were extremely unfamiliar. They were not the same people he had seen the last time he had visited the Tianqin clan, so they did not recognize him. Jianshan stood there and hesitated slightly. In the end, he gave up on the idea of forcing his way in. He said, "I'm looking for Qin Shao. Go inform him. The young master is not seeing anyone during this period of time. You should come another day," said the guard. Jianshan frowned slightly. Just when he was about to continue speaking, a carriage suddenly rushed over from the end of the street. A banner hung from the carriage, and on the banner was a large Qin character. Very soon, the carriage stopped in front of the Tianqin clan's estate. A woman in a white dress with a veil over her face alighted from the carriage. Although it was impossible to see her appearance, it was not difficult to guess from her figure that she was definitely a beauty that could cause the downfall of nations. As soon as the woman alighted from the carriage, she noticed Jianshan from the corner of her eye. She immediately focused on him, and a sliver of surprise appeared in her watery eyes. She asked uncertainly, "May I ask if this is young Master Jianshan?" The woman's voice was extremely pleasant to the ear, like the cry of a skylark. Chapter 480. The second miss of the Tianqing clan gently moved her feet and leisurely arrived before Jianxun. Her pair of beautiful eyes stared at Jianxun with a strange light as she said, "Young Master Jianxun is now a famous person." The title of Mercenary King represents the title of the #1 youth expert, yet it was so easily obtained by young Master Jianxun. The words of the second miss of the Tianqing clan were heard by the guards, and their expressions changed. Their gazes towards Jianxun had completely changed, and their hearts were filled with regret. This was especially true for the guard who had just turned Jianxun away. Even his face became pale. "Damn it, I never thought that he would be the Mercenary King Jianxun who obtained this year's mercenary tournament. I actually spoke to him like that just now." Jianxun cupped his hands and said with a faint smile, "Second miss is too serious. I was only able to obtain the title of #1 because of a moment of luck. Young Master Jianxun is truly modest." The second Mrs. pair of bright eyes had a trace of a faint smile. Her gaze towards Jianxun carried a bit of admiration as she said, "Young Master Jianxun, since you've come to my Tianqing clan, why don't you come in and have a seat?" "That is exactly what I was thinking," Jianxun said with a smile. His expression was easygoing without the slightest trace of arrogance. "Young Master, please." The second miss of the Tianqing clan made an inviting gesture, then walked side by side with Jianxun into the Tianqing clan. When they passed by the entrance, the second miss looked at the guards with a somewhat reproachful gaze and yelled, "This is young Master Jianxun, an important guest of my Tianqing clan. Do not be so rude in the future. Quickly apologize to young Master Jianxun." The guards had a panicked expression and hastily knelt down on one knee. They said with a panicked tone, "This lowly one deserves to die. This lowly one deserves to die. Please punish us, young Master Jianxun." The guards also knew of the Mercenary King's influence. If the head of the Tianqing clan found out that they had just stopped the Mercenary King from entering and even had the intention of chasing him away, then they could not imagine just how severe of a punishment they would receive. "Forget it. It's just a small matter. Let's not talk about it." Jianxun was not a petty person, and what had just happened could not be more normal. After all, the guards of a few large clans more or less carried a bit of arrogance. Chanyang Prefecture was no exception. Jianxun followed the second miss into the Tianqing clan, and the news of the Mercenary King's arrival had already been reported to the clan head by a guard. As a result, not long after Jianxun entered the Tianqing clan's courtyard, Qin Zhao's father personally came to welcome him with the upper echelons of the Tianqing clan. "Ha ha! Welcome to my Tianqing clan, little brother Jianxun. Little brother Jianxun's arrival has truly brought light to my Tianqing clan." The head of the Tianqing clan laughed loudly from a great distance away. His words were extremely respectful. Jianxun's identity was different now. Just the title of Mercenary King was enough to make the head of the Tianqing clan treat him completely different from before. Jianxun and the head of the Tianqing clan exchanged a few words before being invited to the main hall to be warmly entertained. The news of the Mercenary King's arrival spread through the Tianqing clan very quickly, causing the upper echelons of the clan to rush over. On one hand, they wanted to get acquainted with Jianxun, and on the other hand, they wanted to witness the Mercenary King's glory. In a luxurious room within the Tianqing clan, the low growls of men and the soul-stirring moans of women could be heard from time to time. At this moment, an old servant who seemed to be a housekeeper hurried over and said from outside, "Young master, I've just received news that the Mercenary King, Jianxun, who obtained first place in this year's mercenary tournament, has come to my Tianqing clan." In the room, the young Master Tianjue was on the bed with an extremely beautiful girl. When he heard that, he immediately shivered and became impotent. He cried out, "What? Jianxun has come to my Tianqing clan?" The young Master Tianjue could not help but think back to the conflict he had with Jianxun over a year ago. His face immediately paled. "Jianxun has actually come to my Tianqing clan. He must have come to find me. No, I can't stay here any longer." The young Master Tianjue completely lost the will to continue with the girl under him. Ignoring the girl's resentful gaze, he hurriedly got off the bed and put on his clothes. "Housekeeper Tian, Prepare a carriage immediately. I need to leave the city immediately. Remember, don't tell anyone." At this moment, Jianshan was chatting with the upper echelons of the Tianqing clan in the hall. As he was the mercenary king who obtained first place in the mercenary tournament, the upper echelons of the Tianqing clan treated him very politely. They no longer treated him like they did a year ago. In particular, the Tianjue clan took the initiative to apologize to Jianshan for the small misunderstanding between Jianshan and Tianjue. They were extremely sincere. After exchanging some pleasantries, Jianshan entered the main topic. He said to the patriarch of the Tianqing clan, "Patriarch, may I ask where Qin Shao is right now? I'm truly sorry. Ever since Shao returned from the mercenary tournament, he went into seclusion with the great elder to cultivate. He still hasn't returned." The patriarch of the Tianqing clan said with regret. At the same time, he secretly rejoiced inside. Jianshan was so close to his son. If his son became the patriarch in the future, the Tianqing clan would gain another powerful ally. This was because there were rumors on the Tian-Yuan continent that any mercenary king who obtained first place in the mercenary tournament would become a Heaven Saint Master at the very least if they successfully matured. There was even a very high chance for them to break through to Saint Ruler. Jianshan also became disappointed when he heard that Qin Shao was not present. The main reason he had come to the Tianqing clan was because of Qin Shao. Afterwards, the upper echelons of the Tianqing clan all tried to persuade Jianshan to stay. They hoped that Jianshan could stay a little longer in the clan. At the same time, they sent people to call Qin Shao back. In the end, Jianshan found it difficult to turn down their kindness. He agreed to stay in the Tianqing clan for a day, but he rejected the idea of the Tianqing clan sending people to call Qin Shao back. He did not want to disturb Qin Zhao's cultivation because of him. Jianshan received a warm welcome in the Tianqing clan. They even prepared a banquet for Jianshan at night. After the banquet, Jianshan returned to the room the patriarch of the Tianqing clan had specially prepared for him to receive important guests. At this moment, the white tiger that had always been sleeping in Jianshan's embrace suddenly woke up. It slowly opened its eyes and looked around in suspicion with its bright and pure eyes. Afterward, it leapt onto Jianshan's shoulder and gently rubbed its furry head against Jianshan's face. "Little thing, you've finally woken up after sleeping for so long." Jianshan chuckled as he hugged the white tiger from his shoulder. He sensed the white tiger's energy undulations and discovered that the white tiger's strength had already reached Class 3. Whoa. The white tiger whimpered at Jianshan before sniffing the space ring on Jianshan's finger. Jianshan naturally understood what the white tiger meant. However, what surprised him was that the white tiger's intelligence had clearly increased by a lot. It could actually use such a method to express its need for heavenly resources. As expected of the winged tiger, it really is different from the rest. Jianshan thought to himself. He took out the dragon snake grass, geocentric lotus, amethyst fruit, and 10 other heavenly resources from his space ring and fed them to the white tiger. After ingesting the heavenly resources, the white tiger fell into a deep slumber as usual. Jianshan gently placed the sleeping white tiger on the bed before tidying up the few remaining heavenly resources in his space ring. A sliver of worry appeared on his face as he murmured, "There aren't many heavenly resources left. It's probably only enough for the white tiger to reach Class 4. I need to get some heavenly resources as soon as I have time, or the white tiger's strength will definitely be hindered." The night passed in a hurry. The next morning, Jianshan emerged from his room with a white tiger in his arms. He planned on bidding farewell to the patriarch of the Tianqing clan. When he passed by a garden, he suddenly heard the sound of a zither. The young lady of the Tianqing clan was still sitting in the same pavilion as before, playing her zither. Jianshan could not help but think of the time when he had met the heavenly enchantress in the sacred land of Mercenary City as he listened to the music. The heavenly enchantress was a peerless beauty that reigned supreme in the world. She possessed a beauty that outshone the moon and flowers, enough to make the world pale in comparison. Even Jianshan could not help but sigh in amazement at her beauty. Jianchun arrived in the pavilion and stood quietly behind the young lady. His gaze landed on the zither on the stone table, and a sliver of surprise gradually appeared in his eyes. He had seen the heavenly enchantress in person in the sacred land of Mercenary City. He had also seen the zither the heavenly enchantress held in her arms. The zither the young lady was currently playing was exactly the same as the zither of the demonic cry in the heavenly enchantress' arms. He could not help but feel surprised. Jianchun did not disturb the young lady. He stood there quietly. Very soon, the second miss finished her song. Turning her head to look at Jianchun, she said, "Young Master Jianchun, please sit." The second miss of the Tianqin clan was still covered by a veil, so her true appearance could not be seen. Jianchun did not hold back. He walked over to the stone table across from the young lady and sat down. The young lady gently plucked the strings with her slender fingers, causing the zither to produce heavy notes from time to time. However, she looked at Jianchun and said, "According to what I know, young Master Jianchun does not know how to play the zither, yet you've been standing behind me for so long. Is there something you need?" Jianchun faintly smiled. I saw that the zither the young lady used was exactly the same as the one the heavenly enchantress used, so I was extremely curious, which was why I stayed behind. "Please forgive me if I've disturbed you." Surprise flashed through the young lady's eyes. She asked, "Has the young master seen the heavenly enchantress before?" "I was fortunate enough to see her in Mercenary City," said Jianchun. The young lady came to a realization and said, "Young master, you've overlooked something. My zither was originally a replica of the zither of the demonic cry, so it's obviously the same as the one the heavenly enchantress used. There are quite a few zither like this in the outside world, and I just happen to have one." "I see. I've been careless." Afterward, Jianchun casually chatted with the young lady before bidding farewell. "Young lady, I will be leaving the Tianqin clan today. Farewell. I hope we can meet again." "Farewell. Are you in such a hurry to leave?" The young lady of the Tianqin clan walked out of the pavilion with her zither and leisurely followed behind Jianchun. She seemed like a well-bred young lady. "I have important matters to attend to and cannot be delayed, so I can't stay here for long," Jianchun replied. After bidding farewell to the young lady, Jianchun went to find the patriarch of the Tianqin clan to bid farewell. Although the patriarch tried his best to keep him, Jianchun was determined to leave. He was unable to keep Jianchun no matter how hard he tried. In the end, he could only bid farewell to Jianchun regretfully.